Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
The midnight wind howled across the city, carrying a chill that swept between the towering skyscrapers. Neon lights flickered, malls buzzed, and countless people moved through their own lives. But on the rooftop of the tallest office tower, one man stood apart. Elric. His gaze lingered on the pale moon. With a long sigh, he closed his eyes, his thoughts heavy. Why am I the only one living like this? Why does everything go wrong for me? Is the world trying to tell me I don't matter at all? Memories stirred. He saw himself at 12. Bright, sharp, quick to learn. Teachers praised him, but classmates despised him. The bullying grew worse each day. When he begged teachers for help, they dismissed it as childish quarrels. Some covered it up entirely, afraid of the school's blame. At home, it wasn't better. His father, worn out from long hours managing a factory, scolded him for small matters. His older brother David, a baseball star with a cocky streak, told him to man up. His sister Cynthia, obsessed with her looks, barely acknowledged his existence. Only his mother Sophia listened. She promised to talk to the teachers, but nothing changed. The next day, Elric was beaten again. With nowhere to turn, Elric withdrew. He stopped shining in class, stopped making friends. He tried to become invisible. But in solitude, he found one refuge: heroes. First, in comics, Spider-Man, Batman. Outcasts who turned their pain into strength. He dreamed of radioactive spiders, of secret ninja clans that could teach him to fight. Then anime, then novels, then endless manhwas and ice sky tales. Cultivation, hunters, virtual worlds. He devoured them all. While others lived their lives, Elric drowned in fiction. Years blurred. His eidetic memory kept his grades afloat, but ambition withered. His family barely provided the basics. By the time he graduated, he was a loner with no friends, no bonds, no purpose. Eventually, he found stability. A steady job as an accountant. A decent salary. His own apartment. But it was a hollow victory. Conversations with his family happened only when he called them, and even then, felt forced. For years later, Elric turned 30. On his birthday morning, he stood in line at a coffee shop, craving caffeine. Not one call, not a single birthday wish. No family, no friends, not even an online circle anymore. For the first time, the solitude he once embraced felt suffocating. When his turn came, his hand brushed against someone else's, warm, delicate. "Excuse me. The coffee's in my other hand," said a blonde girl with striking blue eyes. "Ah, sorry." Lost in thought, Elric pulled back, embarrassed. Her name tag read Catherine. That small touch replayed in his mind all day. For a man who'd never dated, never held hands, never had a female friend, it was like a spark in the darkness. Over the next few weeks, he greeted Catherine whenever he saw her. She always responded politely, sometimes with a gentle smile. To Elric, that smile felt like sunlight. To Catherine, it was simply part of her job. But Elric didn't know that. One morning, as he stood in line, his heart pounded with a reckless thought. What's the worst that can happen? She says no. When her shift ended, he finally walked up to her. "Hey, Catherine, are you free tonight?" Her eyes widened slightly. "And if I am, what plans do you have in mind?" Caught, Elric swallowed. "Dinner. With me." Inside, he was panicking. I'm screwed, I'm screwed, I'm screwed." But his voice came out calm. To his shock, Catherine smiled. 8 p.m., Central City Park. "I'll text you the address. Give me your number." Elric froze, gobsmacked, flabbergasted. This had to be a prank. "You're serious?" "Of course. Honestly, I was waiting for you to ask me. If you hadn't, I probably would have done it myself." Elric nearly fainted. For once, reality was stranger than fiction. That night, he went all out. Dinner at a fine restaurant. Laughter at the amusement park. Stories shared under city lights. Catherine told him about her humble background, her part-time job, her acting classes, her struggles. Elric admired her strength. Week after week, their bond grew. Elric felt something he hadn't in decades: connection. But one day she vanished. No calls, no replies. Even her roommates had no idea where she'd gone. Elric's chest felt hollow, as though a piece of him had been ripped away. Why does it hurt so much? Why do I feel so empty? The answer was simple, yet terrifying. Elric, the man who thought he'd never need anyone, had fallen in love. 3 nights later, Elric's phone finally rang. "Hey, it's me." Catherine's voice trembled. Elric almost dropped the phone. "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer? Do you have any idea how worried I was?" A pause. Then her voice cracked. "I'm sorry, things have been a mess." "What happened?" His tone hardened. "Kate, I deserve to know." There was silence, then a sob. "It's my dad. He has cancer. Stage 3. We just found out. He didn't tell us. He didn't want us to worry. And now, we don't even have the money to treat him." Her voice broke completely, the sound of grief spilling through the phone. Elric's chest tightened. It was as though his own father lay dying. Without thinking, he asked, "How much do you need?" "What?" "The treatment. Tell me the cost." "Around 100,000. "I'll handle it," Elric said firmly. "I've been saving. Let me help." "No," she blurted. "I can't ask you for that. Even family won't lend us so much. We've barely known each other. I can't." "Kate." His voice softened. "I like you. I trust you. Please don't refuse. I couldn't sleep if I turned my back on this." The sobs quieted. Then, softly, "Elric, thank you. I like you too. I never imagined confessing like this, but thank you." Moments later, she sent him an account number. Elric transferred the money without hesitation. For the next week, silence. He told himself she was busy caring for her father. But on the 9th day, when he finally called, "The number you have dialed does not exist." He froze. Tried again. Same result. Even from his other phone. Nothing. Panic rising, he went to her apartment. But her landlord told him Catherine had paid her overdue rent, packed everything, and vanished. The address she'd once given him didn't exist. Her roommates? Strangers from a rental app. At the coffee shop, the owner admitted her information had been fake all along. Elric stood in the street, numb. No, this can't be real. But it was. Catherine, if that was even her real name, was gone. The father's illness, her tears, her words, all lies. He had been scammed. The news spread fast. Soon, whispers turned to mockery. A colleague sneered at him in the office. "Didn't take you for such a fool, Johnson. If you wanted to get laid so badly, should have just hired a hooker." Laughter followed. Elric, once respected for his work, was now nothing but a joke. That evening, he escaped to the rooftop of his building. The city lights sprawled endlessly below, but all he felt was darkness. This pain, worse than childhood bullying, worse than his parents' coldness. For the first time, he'd let himself hope. For the first time, he'd cared. And it had all shattered. Tears streamed down his face. He didn't blame the world entirely. Deep down, he knew he had been weak, too afraid to fight for a better life. Still, tonight, the weight was unbearable. "Why me?" His whisper cut through the night. "Why am I always the one left behind? Why does nothing ever go right?" He stepped to the edge. Looked down. The drop was endless. Is my life even worth living? The answer never came. Elric closed his eyes, breathed in the cold air, and whispered, "What a pathetic life." And then, he jumped. The city below screamed as his body hit the pavement, blood painting the street. Onlookers froze in horror, some retching, some calling for help. But there was nothing left to save. Elric Johnson, a man forsaken by family, betrayed by love, and crushed by loneliness, had ended it all. To the world, he was just another nameless tragedy. To himself, it was the only escape. He never woke again. In a dimension unknown, which was beyond the concept of heaven or hell, existed an infinite void with no signs of life. No matter which direction it was, no matter how farther one went, an endless void without a single ray of light was all there was. Suddenly, a crack in space appeared out of nowhere. It kept elongating rapidly, and in an instant, it stretched around 10 kilometers vertically, and finally, a gigantic figure sitting on a black stone throne, which was no less than the size of a mountain itself, emerged from the other side of the void. This figure was akin to the height of a couple of mountains, completely clad in majestic black clothes, and had a hood on the head. Appearance-wise, It had semblance to the interpretation of Grim Reaper. Its face could not be seen, as if it didn't exist, as the newly arrived entity looked around for a moment and waved its right hand to create a space of its own, widening for a dozen kilometers and stabilizing itself, like forming a gigantic dome-like barrier. An ancient voice, so deep that it could reach thousands of miles and decimate cities in a dust, filled that entire space within the barrier. Who should I pick this time? The being asked itself. Just a few moments later, a set of footsteps could be heard from the void crack behind the throne, and another entity, which was completely clad in a red and black ancient armor, stepped in. This other being was half the size of the former who was sitting on the throne. Two giant black swords that were big enough to cleave 5 floors building in two were hanging on its back. The warrior-looking being's head was covered by a spiky and horned helmet like a death knight. So whether it was a living being, an undead, or a specter could not be guessed. It came in the front and kneeled in front of the gigantic being on its left knee, like how a knight would in front of their king. It spoke in a grim, yet very authoritative tone. "My liege, it's about time. But I hope you reconsider your decision. We cannot make a mistake again. Cravel, I know what worries you. We can't afford to have someone like the previously summoned human, as we did 3 centuries ago. But do not worry. I have already decided upon a suitable kind of person for this task," responded the godly being on the throne. "But, my liege, the kind of people you've shortlisted do not possess any qualities we need to complete this mission. The ones that were brought from other worlds so far had an incredible talent for leadership, unyielding willpower, and wisdom to overcome any adversity that was thrown at them. But still, all of them failed. So what could the type of person you've decided upon even do? They'll die even before reaching half of their objective," gravelled Cravel in front of his master. Yet the entity on the throne did not seem to be concerned. "I understand your worries, but this is the exact reason I'm looking for someone who does not have anything in common with their predecessors." The being spoke and rested its head on its right hand. The palm of this existence looked like something that was covered in black metal, and it had no flesh or any bones. The entity spoke again. "This time we need someone different and very unconventional. But my liege, this is probably our last chance. You will no longer have the strength to summon anyone again, not for at least the next 1,000 years. And by then, the other gods will have their own chosen ones complete the mission. It'll be a loss we can't afford at all," Cravel said with an anxious tone. "My decision is final, Cravel. Sometimes uncertainty can bring you wonders. This summon will be able to surpass those who came before him," said the entity, and didn't stand on ceremony any longer. The godly being waved his hand, and a horizontal rift of the length of a kilometer opened inside the barrier they were in. And suddenly, millions of bright spherical white orbs with a blue hue around them rushed out from that rift. Hum, hum. The surroundings reverberated incessantly as these bright orbs spread across. The ancient being simply glanced at all these orbs of light, and its eyes shone as a reddish wave of light swam across all the orbs, and the being closed its eyes. After a few moments, it opened its eyes and waved its left hand again. "Now let's see the most miserable ones with enough knowledge and experience to do our bidding." The being spoke again. In the next instant, only around 5,000 of these bright orbs were left. The eyes of this being flickered again, as if it was trying to read and understand what was inside of these orbs. When it opened its eyes again, only around 100 orbs were left. My, so pitiful. Not a single one of these people ever accomplished anything in their lives. They had so much potential to lead a life of great achievements and glory, but they wasted it due to constant failures and simply giving up in the end. Well, good for me. Now let's see if I can find the most suitable person. The ancient being pulled these remaining orbs in its palm and kept staring at them as if it was analyzing something. A dozen seconds later, the being seemed surprised and exclaimed in joy, "I found him. I found the perfect match." Cravel, who was still kneeling, sighed and shook his head. "It's the end for us," he spoke to himself while shaking his head in indignation. The ancient entity looked at the tiny orb, which looked like a tiny molecule compared to its size. He waved his hand again, and the rest of the white orbs that came through the rift started returning at an unimaginable speed, and in just 10 seconds, only this one orb was left. "I hope you don't regret this, my liege," said Cravel, and looked at his master. "Huh, you have no idea, Cravel. We've struck gold." The being said, and suddenly an archaic pentagram appeared below the white orb. And the white orb shone brighter and started expanding until it turned into the size of a man. It started shrinking in a vertical direction, for limbs started forming from it. 2 hands, 2 legs, a head, and censored hashtag came to be. There was a human-looking face, but the outlines hadn't formed completely. The facial structure differed from a normal human face and looked more like a mannequin face. This human-looking figure started opening his eyes. "Wake up, Elric. I'm the god of darkness, and I'm here to give you another chance at life." The ancient being declared its identity. It was the god of darkness who ruled over death and the eternal abyss. Elric Johnson, who committed suicide and ended his own life after suffering through many traumatic, heartbreaking experiences and one big betrayal throughout his childhood until his last moment on Earth, finally opened his eyes. The memories of all the noteworthy experiences of his previous life started coming back to Elric. At this moment, he didn't move a single bit as his bright spectral body was currently floating in the air by a force unknown. He clearly remembered that he died since the unimaginable pain he experienced when his body finally hit the ground was still completely fresh in his memory, as if it happened just a few moments ago. Elric looked in front of him and saw a towering figure his eyesight could not grasp completely. The being calling itself the God of Darkness was so gigantic, humongous, and vast that even hundreds of Elric could not even amount to its fingernail. He squinted his eyes, as if trying to look at something that was placed very far away. Can you be any less bigger? I can't even tell how you look," asked Elric. Shing! Suddenly, a chaotic burst of deathly aura came from behind him, and he looked back and saw another being half the size of the one standing in front of him, yet still very humongous and staring at him. The gigantic warrior-like entity stared at the human as if it wanted to cut the tiny being into millions of pieces. The red iris was visible through that giant figure's helmet, and an unimaginably horrifying pressure was exerted on Elric's spectral figure. "You wretched human, how dare you speak to a god like my master in such a manner? You're nothing but a speck of dust, and yet to dare to ask a god to adjust himself to your level," Cravel said angrily. "Leave it, Cravel. He's simply not aware of what's happening now. He was dead just a few seconds ago," God of Darkness said, and quickly shrank his size in the next moment. The resized Geode was still the size of a 10-story building. He looked at Cravel and gestured to resize his appearance as well. Cravel, on the other hand, still kept looking at Elric with murderous eyes, but did follow his master's orders and become half of his original size. Elric let out a sigh of relief and looked at Geode again. "What do you want from me?" Elric asked. "Elric, I'm the God of Darkness in my world, and I have a task for you. I want you to become my representative in our world and complete a mission. In return, I will give you a chance to live your life again as a human being. A new start where you are completely free from your past." Geode said, as if he was bestowing the world's greatest honor on Elric, and appeared very godly and magnanimous in his tone. But unlike what he expected, the reaction threw everyone off. Elric, who stood rooted on the spot for a minute and took a long breath before replying in a loud voice. "Fuck off." Silence. Total utter silence. It felt as if even a man's heart could not beat at this moment. Elric's response left both God of Darkness and Cravel speechless. It struck them like an arrow in the throat, as both of them seemed to lose their ability to speak and think at the same time. Why did he give such an extreme reaction? Elric literally unalived himself because he was fed up with his life and the world. He committed suicide to achieve never-ending peace. And yet, this entity called God of Darkness wanted him to live again for some reason. It took a lot of mental strength and conviction to commit suicide and end your life. Elric crossed that threshold as he was broken from the inside as a human being. So no way he would want to live again to repeat the same cycle. This is why he suddenly erupted and told a literal god like the god of darkness to fuck off without thinking of the consequences. A few seconds passed away, and the god of darkness stared at Elric with a gaze so deep and full of wrath, enough to kill anyone just by looking at them. Suddenly, an extremely horrifying aura exuded out of both God of Darkness and Cravel's bodies. Bang! Unimaginably horrendous killing intent filled the surrounding atmosphere and covered a radius of a few dozen kilometers. Even diamonds would be reduced to nothing but small granules under this pressure. Elric, the one being who was actually at the receiving end of it all, shuddered, and his soul form flickered again and again, as if his current form was simply getting wiped out of existence and brought back to life. To Elric, it felt like he had gone through thousands of deaths. This pressure he was enduring had destroyed his current form and rebuilt him again in a nanosecond, only to carry out the process indefinitely. After a minute of such a heart-wrenching scenario, God of Darkness and Cravel finally stopped exuding their killing intent and looked at Elric, who was barely keeping his screams inside. He just didn't get time to open his mouth and scream or wail. To be precise, he had indeed died a few thousand times again in that 1 minute. But an unknown force kept bringing him back to his previous state. Elric had a hint of exactly what this was. It was the God of Darkness using his powers on Elric after his extremely rude and disrespectful response. God of Darkness retracted his gaze from Elric. It appeared to become extremely dim compared to before. God ruled over death and infinite abyss. He was a true god who controlled an aspect of reality. Then God gazed at Elric with a look of disappointment and spoke again. Never had I ever seen such an extremely impetuous human before. Even the other gods do not dare to talk to me in such a vile and disrespectful manner. Tell me, mortal, what makes you think I really won't wipe you out of existence or torture you for the end of time? He questioned Elric. Elric, who had finally gained control over his consciousness, looked back at God and responded, "Then why don't you do it? What makes you think I want to be alive? Just finish the job and end me already." Elric's fearless answer left both God and Cravel speechless again. Had their act of try to put Elric into submission by making him experience death over a few thousand times turned him into a fool? Or had he gone senile from the pain and suffering to become a suicidal maniac? Cravel, who was rendered speechless by Elric since he had said "fuck off" to God, looked at his master as if he was looking at someone who broke their favorite toy. "My liege, are you sure you haven't destroyed his consciousness completely?" Cravel asked. God was startled at this point and refused by flexing his hands around. What are you waiting for? Just kill me already. I don't want to look at your ugly faces for another second." Elric grumbled in a discontent tone. "Ugly your mother," both God and Cravel said in rebuttal. Both of them looked at Elric as if he just killed their dog. Elric on the other end was surprised. These two ultimate beings killed him over a few thousand times for being disrespectful, but now they were suddenly throwing rude comments at him for calling them ugly like little girls. Why was this happening? He just wanted to die again and be done with it. At the next second, however, God decided to end the charade and get back to business. "Why do you not want to live again? Is it because of your past life experiences?" he asked Elric. God of Darkness had already read through Elric's memories, so he knew of his miserable life. "Yes. Who wants a second chance at life just to get used up by someone else again? I mean, whatever you want me to do comes with a price, which definitely won't be beneficial to me at all. And why should I believe in anything you say? Let's save us all the trouble, send me back to being dead, and find someone else who actually wants to live," Elric said with a bored expression. God and Cravel were taken aback again. "So you don't want to live again, mortal? Do you not understand the opportunity my liege is offering you? Not everyone gets such a miraculous chance." Cravel, who refrained to be part of this conversation, decided to meddle. "Are you two morons dumb? Didn't you hear me the first time? Let me die, you bastards. Pick someone else. Why do you even need to listen to me? Just send me back." Elric gave his discontent rebuttal. "However, I can't." God finally spoke up. He shook his head and was trying to avoid direct eye contact. My powers allow me to control death and things that have no place in existence. I'm a being born out of that very aspect of reality in our world. But even so, at most, I can summon the dead souls from other worlds like yours inside this world boundary, and only keep just one of such souls in my possession, since the dead of other worlds are bound to their respective worlds' laws of reality. And even keeping one soul here takes an immense amount of my power. God explained the whole process. Elric looked at God as if he was looking at a liar, not satisfied with his answer at all. But then he looked at Cravel, who was standing beside God's throne. And he too looked like that was indeed the truth. And what if I refused to do whatever you said you wanted me to do? You'll at least kill me, right? Elric asked with an expectant and elated expression. No. Both God and Cravel shouted at the same time. Why? Elric asked with an irritated countenance. Because you're the only one we can rely upon now. And I can no longer summon anyone again for the next few thousand years, spoke God. And why should I care? From the looks of it, it looks like an impossible job for a normal office worker guy like me. I didn't live a life of wonders and heroic deeds, you know. Why would you even pick me of all the people you could have picked? Elric asked curiously. This didn't make sense to him, as God could have easily brought someone more capable and experienced for whatever job they had to be done. So why him? God, however, stayed silent for a dozen seconds and finally heaved a sigh. He looked at Elric and said in a solemn tone, because the task we're going to give you demands one being extremely aware and not trusting anyone. Because currently, all my representatives and anyone who is allied with me has been marked as someone who must be killed in the entire world of Vantria, including those who once served or worshipped me in the form of cults, temples, and churches, said God in a very disheartened tone. I wasn't even supposed to summon you myself. Normally, whenever a chosen one is brought from a different world into ours, they are summoned by the churches and the empire who worship a particular god and follow their doctrine at the expense of hundreds of mages working together. But all my followers and anyone who had worshipped me were wiped out completely 300 years ago. And now, not many people in our world even know that I exist. My name is nothing but a myth in our world at this point. God explained. Elric, who looked at both the beings in front of him with a suspecting gaze, still appeared to be uncertain and asked, So what do you want me to do? Build churches and temples for you, spread your divine teachings to the masses, and bring you back to your glory days? Sorry, but I'm not a religious guy. God and Cravel both glanced at each other and then gazed at Elric together. No, we don't want you to do something so arduous and hectic. We just need you to kill the demon god, said God with an embarrassed tone. As if struck by 1,000 bolts of lightning at the same time, Elric stayed rooted on the spot, shivering in immense disbelief. He didn't speak or move at all. Only after half a minute, he was fumed with anger and shouted, You motherfuckers! Silence. Another total silence. Kill the demon god? What the fuck? How is Elric going to do it? From what he heard God and Cravel say before, even those who came before him and also the chosen ones of other gods failed to do so, and probably they all died, including the previous summon who came before Elric. So how was he supposed to do it? Saving the world sounded good only when it was fictional or somebody else did it, who would waste their life just so they could brag about it. Elric looked at the two ultimate beings who were standing in front of him. His expression was as if they greatly wronged him. Even Cravel, who was even sterner and stone-faced than God, looked the other way, as if he was thinking, The weather is very nice today. Both of them were beings who could destroy an entire country with just a wave of their hand, but now they were avoiding eye contact with a single human as they felt embarrassed for making such a request. God finally dared to look at him and asked, So what do you think? Do you accept our proposal? No. Nahi. Nay. Nada. Nako. Nya. Iani. Mayo. Refused Elric in all the different languages he knew. He sat on the imaginary ground and held his head in both of his hands. He felt like dying one more time. He started hurling abuses at the two godly existences in front of him again. Fuck you. Fuck your mom. Fuck your sister. Fuck your entire family. Elric kept rambling as he started cursing God and Cravel's 18 generations of ancestors. Unlike the previous time, both Geode and Cravel didn't exude any killing intent as they stood there like little kids who were being scolded by their parents. All they could do was endure with their heads hanging down. After 10 minutes of rambling and cursing, Elric finally stopped as he was thinking of ways to escape his current predicament. What if I don't accept it? You clearly can't make me accept by force, and that's why you need my approval, Elric said with a smug face. But Geode spoke again with a calculative expression on his face. You're right. We can't transfer your soul into our world without your permission. However, it's not like you have any other choice either. We're currently inside the world boundary. Look at the dome around us. It's a personal space I created when I summoned the souls from your world. Without it, nothing is supposed to exist in this place. Geode said in a smug tone. Doesn't that mean I'll die if I exit out of this dome? Works for me. Elric said joyfully. That was his main objective for now. To die for good. The next second, Geode shook his head and replied, That's not how it works. Nothing is supposed to exist inside this place. If you exit the dome, you'll become part of the world boundary itself, and you'll be tied to it forever. You won't be able to leave, and you certainly won't die either. You'll be simply bound to this place for the end of time. Why do you think even a god like me had to create this barrier to protect myself? Elric finally came to a realization. It all made sense. He looked around his surroundings again and saw that outside the dome, there truly was nothing. No light, no land, no water, not even air, nothing. He thought he might cease to exist if he went outside, but after hearing Geode explain it, he found it believable. Why would a literal god, like the god of darkness, need to create a barrier and protect himself from this place? If he could enter it, he could easily leave as well. But if he did have the ability, he wouldn't need to create this dome and protect himself if not being tied to this world boundary was an actual thing that would happen. If Elric went outside the barrier, he'll just become part of this place and exist here till this place was destroyed, which was simply impossible and wouldn't happen even for billions of years to come. And Elric would become insane here. This was literally a fate worse than death. Even the core of his soul shuddered with just the thought of it. He heaved a long sigh and came to terms with his current situation. He can't die, and couldn't leave this place either. The only way out was with Geode sending him to their world called Vantria. It seemed like he really did not have any other choice but to accept their proposal. Fine, I'll do it. As much as I want to die, I don't want to be stuck here and wander till the end of time and go insane. Elric with discomfort spilling out in his voice. Great. It's good that we've come to an agreement, Geode said cheerily. Even Cravel was nodding his head in joy. But, Elric said and stopped his words. He looked at both of them and looked as if he was thinking about something very important. Let me be straight. I don't want to work my ass off just to attempt your task. I mean, Demon God is also a literal god, just like you, right? Elric asked. Not quite, Geode said as he continued. I and other gods are beings born out of different aspects of reality and laws of existence in our world. We each have perfect control over the laws from which we were manifested from, and we will continue to exist as long as our world exists. However, Demon God was born out of thousands of years of malice and hatred. He is an unnatural being and something that shouldn't exist. If not for the past 10,000 years of wars and bloodshed that kept happening in our world, something like him wouldn't even come to manifest. He gave a helpless look at Elric and said, We gods can only represent a law of our world and have perfect control over that law. So we can't affect the world or intervene in it directly. We're more like an overseer at this point. And with different species in our world reaching the most prominent time of their civilizations, something like wars for survival, for resources, and for the beliefs that were instilled in them by the gods they've worshipped till now, conflict was bound to occur. The past 5,000 years were a testament to its greatest impact in the history of our world. And the demon god, who was born as nothing but an anomaly in our world, kept feeding over it and is becoming stronger and stronger again, even though he is still not even half as strong as any of the 13 gods. At this rate, We think it won't take him even the next 100 years before he reaches our level and establishes his law of existence into our world. God finally stopped explaining. But that's not all. Since he's an anomaly born out of war, malice, and bloodshed inside the whole world. Once he becomes a god like us, he will keep getting stronger till the point none of the 12 gods can stop him. And unlike us, he won't be bound to follow the laws of reality in our world, and will be able to interfere in it directly. He can simply wipe out all the living beings and reach a height where even us gods would be nothing but ants in front of him, said God in a worrying tone. Are you kidding me? How is that even possible? To reach a level above the gods? You're lying, Elric said skeptically. I wish that was true. But unlike your world, ours is too many times bigger and filled with mana, as well as world energy, so vast that even we gods can't completely control or contain it. And since we also represent different laws of reality, the world rejects us when we try to combine our powers and treats us like external beings, similar to an outsider trying to enter your house. We've tried and failed hundreds of times already. And that's why 3,000 years ago, we gods made a pact to find a solution to end it. And after decades of research, we found a way to summon beings from other worlds. God finally explained the exact reason why Elric was brought in here. But I don't understand one thing. Why us humans? Because there must be other superior life forms in the multiverse, right? Elric asked. Since I read your memories, I understand what you mean. God said and continued. The thing is, you humans from other worlds have the greatest affinity with the mana and world energy of our world. In other words, you can become indefinitely stronger as you increase your magical powers and experience with time. You lot possess the potential to reach the same level as what you can call a demigod. Just like Cravel over here. God finished his words and pointed towards Cravel, his most trusted vassal. So, you're a demigod? Elric asked as he looked towards Cravel with a surprised expression. Yes, I am. But unlike you or the other chosen ones, I'm not from a different world. I was born in our world and reached the level of demigod through my own efforts. It took me thousands of years to accomplish that goal. Also, unlike the demon god, I'm bound to the laws of our worlds after becoming a demigod since I was a natural living being in the first place. So I too can no longer directly intervene in our world's happenings. If the demon god was born in the same era as me, I would have killed him myself. Cravel said and shook his head as he was a loss. After hearing someone so stubborn as Cravel, Elric understood exactly how grave matter it was. The world was near an end, and the most supreme beings in it were helpless to do anything to prevent it. And the world itself was rejecting their intervention. It was a very complicated situation itself. No wonder even the almighty gods had to rely on humans summoned from other worlds to do their bidding. Wait, I don't understand one thing, though. You said all the gods agreed to kill the demon god together. But then why were your followers boycotted and now declared to be on the entire world's must-kill list? You're not hiding something from me, are you? Elric asked and looked at God of Darkness with a suspicious gaze. At his query, God looked at Elric with a helpless expression and said, It's because among the gods, I and God of Light are the strongest. However, I represent death and the end of a living being's existence. And not many in the entire world would wish to worship such a god who thrives on the deaths of the world's inhabitants. Right? God said embarrassingly. Out with it. The whole truth. Or you can forget about me accepting your proposal. Elric said in an angered tone. He was no fool. Where there was life, there was bound to be death. But that wasn't a valid reason to despise death itself, as it was part of the natural cycle of any living being. Even the most indestructible thing in the world would cease to exist after a time. So whatever God was telling Elric wasn't the complete truth, or it was a complete lie to begin with. God was left speechless again. Why was this human so smart? Was it because of the past life experiences that he found everybody untrustworthy? Or was it because he was simply an overly cautious guy? He had no answer. Fine, I'll tell you the truth, God said with a furious expression. As long as it's the whole truth. Elric said in a firm tone. It's because my eighth chosen one, the previous summon and your predecessor, he, God of Darkness, stopped his words and rested his head back on his throne as if he was lamenting on a bad memory. After a dozen seconds, he continued and revealed the truth. He killed all the other chosen heroes. Elric couldn't believe what God just revealed to him. Another mind-boggling plot twist. First, it was fighting against Demon God, and now that his predecessor killed the chosen heroes of the other gods. Just hearing this made Elric regret his decision to agree with God of Darkness's proposal. Now he understood why the entire world of Vantria had issued a kill-on-sight order for those who followed, worshipped God of Darkness, and were wiped out 3 centuries ago. It was his predecessor who basically made an enemy out of the entire world and now had implicated Elric as well. Oi, tell me that's a lie. That joke is not even funny, said Elric with a contorted face as he still had not come to accept the truth. It was understandable, as every religious branch or empire would cherish the chosen heroes, which were to complete the task ordered by their god and treat them with the utmost care, hospitality, and respect, and to have them killed. Not just one of them, but all 12 of these heroes by one who was tasked with the same mission as them. No wonder all the ruling authorities, regardless of their qualms and indifferences with each other, would be united to massacre the main party responsible and anyone associated with them. And that is why God of Darkness and his followers have been rooted out of the annals of history 300 years ago. Doesn't that mean I'll be killed off as soon as I enter your world, and somebody knows my real identity as your chosen hero? Elric asked with a pitiful face. He had just reached the peak of the mountain, only to fall straight into the abyss. Bloody hell, my bad luck won't leave me even in my second life. Elric lamented his extremely disastrous luck, and he had no other choice but to do it anyway, or he'll be forever stuck inside the world boundary. Now, what? How am I even supposed to kill the demon god? You just raised the game difficulty from hell mode to impossible mode. This is beyond hopeless already. I don't think that I can do it even if I had 10 more lives. Elric said with a depressed expression on his countenance. If he wasn't in his soul form now, he'd already be shedding tears. Naturally, you'll have to conceal that fact, until you're strong enough to face the entire world on your own, at least. God said as if this was something very normal. Elric rolled his eyes in exasperation in return. Facing the world by yourself? Did the God of Darkness think it would be that easy? Wouldn't this entail that Elric will have to live like a criminal, a thief, a prey running away, as he would be constantly hunted down by the entire world? Don't worry. I naturally have the means to conceal your arrival. Neither gods nor their followers would be able to detect it. Also, the fact that your original body being destroyed would become our advantage, God said, trying to comfort Elric, who seemed on the verge of committing suicide again. What do you mean? What does that have to do with my original body? Elric asked. All the gods and their followers always have to go through a grand ceremony with hundreds of magicians partaking in the summoning ritual. Even in Vantria, where mana and world energy are flowing in abundance, breaking the dimension barrier between different worlds and summoning a person takes a huge amount of magic. That is enough to cause a massive energy spike in the world, noticeable even from 10 kilometers away. And that's why every summoned hero/heroine is accounted for. On top of that, they all come with their original bodies in our world, unlike you, whose body was reduced to dust after your death. God explained the whole ordeal, as Elric didn't have any knowledge or information on how things worked in the world of Vantria. God then continued, and me being the one summoning you is also the major factor. Other gods can't summon the souls of the dead from other worlds at all. I'm the only one who can do it, since I'm the manifestation of death and darkness. Bringing something like the soul of someone deceased is not even worth mentioning. Other gods can at most open the world boundary and take a peek at the world they intend to summon a chosen hero from. God said with a smug smile as he reveled in the sense of superiority he was feeling because of his specialty. Then how do I enter your world without a body? Don't tell me I'm going there in this form, like a ghost or a wraith. Elric wondered and asked. Naturally, we'll have to construct a new body for you. Or I can simply put your soul inside of someone who died just a few hours ago. Take your pick. God spoke like a true professional and flicked his imaginary glasses with his forefinger. Wait, you said before that we humans have the highest affinity with magic in your world. Even if I were to go into a new body or be transferred inside someone else's body, wouldn't I be just a normal person and weaker compared to other heroes? Elric asked, making a valid point. Not exactly. I've done my research over decades about this matter, and I found that it's not the physical body, but your soul. Compared to the inhabitants of our world, your souls are brighter like a midday sun. And not only that, but they can also absorb and accumulate magical and world energy over time at an extremely fast speed. And hence you can become as strong as a demigod. The physical body is just a convenient medium. God explained, revealing his knowledge-seeking mind when it came to death and souls. Elric, who had come to terms with his upcoming fate, started thinking about these two options. So, can you construct me a body out of nothing? I won't be reborn as an undead or a skeleton, right? Elric asked skeptically. He had to be cautious here. Otherwise, who knows if he'd become undead or a walking, talking skeleton who would be killed at first sight by anyone he met. That death won't even be worth pitying. Rather, anyone who heard about it would roll on the floor laughing their ass off. Who do you think you're talking to? Even though I'm not the god of life, I do possess that power. And not only that, I can make you a body to your specifications, no matter what color, height, or build you want. I am an expert at that. God started flexing about his useless talent as if he was doing a great service to Elric. In the next moment, however, Elric, who had been most curious till now, looked extremely shocked, and suddenly there was a greedy and evil grin on his face. This whole thing meant that he could finally achieve that ideal body he always dreamt of in his previous life. The body of a Greek god or one of those superhero movie actors he looked up to for body aesthetics. But Elric didn't show the excitement on his face. Instead, he appeared as if he was giving it a good thought and asked again, and what about the second option? Will I have the memories of the person I'm transmigrated in? At this query, God responded quickly. No, something like possessing someone's memories is tied to their soul. Once you die and your soul leaves the mortal body, there is no connection of consciousness left, so you won't inherit the memories of the previous occupant. However, I don't think I need to remind you about how you'll be tied to that person's past and the people they once knew. And since you can't reveal that you're no longer that person and someone else, you'll have to play the part. But this does have its advantages, responded God of Darkness. I can transfer you inside the body of someone who is a very influential person in our world, like royalty or even a king if we have the options available. So think about it carefully, God said, and left Elric to think about it alone. A dozen minutes passed while Elric was lost in his thoughts, continuously thinking about the pros and cons of both scenarios. If he chose to go with a newly made body of his choosing, he would not have any ties to anyone and would be free to do anything he wanted. He won't have to answer to anyone and could easily fake out his background as well if someone asked him. This could help him in the long run, aside from the most obvious advantage of having a perfectly made body of his own. But on the other hand, he'd be penniless. There would be no one he knows or have any means to get settled quickly. He'd be homeless, backgroundless, would know nothing about the world, and nobody to help him in his journey to do the impossible task of killing the demon god. The other option, however, gave him a lot of advantages. Like if he chose the body of someone very influential or someone who had the access to a lot of resources at their beck and call. That'd save him tons of trouble. He could simply be reborn in the body of some prince who died, an emperor who was close to death, a great general, or an aristocrat who was respected by everybody. If these choices were available to them, that is. This would enable him to adjust himself very quickly inside the world of Vantria, and also let him focus on his main goal without having to struggle just to establish himself in the world. But just like the first option, this one also had a lot of disadvantages of its own. For example, if he were to be transmigrated inside someone who once held a huge authority before their death, naturally there would be a lot of explaining to do about how he came back to life. And since he wouldn't inherit the memories of the previous owner, He won't know anyone or any necessary information or the original owner of the body. And if he feigns some lie or something like losing his memories, that'd also mean that the new body of that person will hold no power for the time being. Rather, others would try to get rid of him on the accords of having him lost all his memories, or even claim that he made a deal with the devil. What's next will be a grand crucifixion in the central street of the city. Plus, there would be issues regarding the health and state of the original body, such as old age or any former disease or illness or the body being too weak. Also, the connection with other people. Like if he were to be born in the body of an old man, he'd have a wife, children, and grandchildren to deal with. If he was born as a kid or a teen, even if that was a prince of a country, the actual power he'd hold will be in the name only. And naturally, Elric will have to deal with the hassle of political issues and drama as the heir or a scion of a king/emperor. There is too much unnecessary burden that will be thrown at him. And because of these advantages and disadvantages, Elric was thinking very carefully about what would be the best choice. And at the same time, he was thankful to the God of Darkness for at least offering him the choice. Otherwise, he had read plenty of mangas, novels, and manhwas where the main character just gets thrown inside the body of someone else and has no other choice but to live like them or suffer through the problems they've been going through. Elric straight up hated that scenario, even in stories where you just suddenly wake up as someone else and find yourself at odds and have to go through a lot of nonsense. He also had once fallen into this cycle and knew the story's setting and patterns well. He had come to realize them after years of voraciously feeding his brain about these stories. Like hell, he was going to live one of those loosely based storylines only appealing to little children and newbies who just entered the world of fantasy and fictional stories. To put in a word, Elric was a goddamn war veteran compared to these people. He had the experience of a decade and a half living that very life. He had seen through it all. He had lived through it all. Let be TV shows, superhero movies, reading mangas, manhwas, manhwas, novels, and other stuff. He had an eidetic memory, so he was a walking, talking ancient archive of all of these stories and the information. What he knew was just beyond comprehension. After overthinking all the possible scenarios and their consequences, Elric finally made up his mind. He looked towards the God of Darkness with a resolute gaze and said, "First choice." Elric said and folded his arms together. "Really? Why not the second? It is the most beneficial and will save you the hassle. Didn't you say that you don't want to work too much and waste your life on it?" Geode asked as he was puzzled by Elric's choice. He too was new at this because his previous chosen heroes were summoned exactly the same way as the heroes of the other gods. Although he had the ability to personally summon someone from another world, he never actually had a need or a reason to. So he assumed that Elric would decide upon an easy and smoother way. But to his surprise, Elric chose the most unconventional way here, because there were just too many odds against him in the first choice scenario. If he himself was in Elric's position, he'd obviously take the second option. Too many complicated reasons. You wouldn't understand even if I told you all of them. I'd rather do this whole thing on my own terms. And since when have I been dependent on others or cared about what others think of me? Asked Elric confidently. Something like family, friends, lovers, or a community holds no value if you take away the reason for their existence. Only because of responsibilities, need, order, or liabilities are these relationships and bonds formed. In the first choice, I'll be free of it all. I simply won't have to look after anyone else but myself. He declared his honest opinion. Also, I definitely won't be making the same mistakes as the past life where I had no choice to begin with. This time, I'll choose everything on my own accord. This time, I will be in complete control of my own life. Elric said, his expression oozing out his determination. Strange indeed. If any of your predecessors were in your place, they would have chosen the second option. You, on the other hand, taking an unconventional turn is surprising to me as well, said God of Darkness. Geode turned his gaze back to Elric and said, "Let's decide the most crucial part of this arrangement then." "What is it?" queried Elric with an expectant gaze. "Your divine abilities." Divine abilities, what were those? In the language of nerds, weebs, otakus, and novel readers, they were the cheat codes of every protagonist of the reincarnation story trope. Without them, the main character was as ordinary as a random passerby on the street. And after all the discussion and decisions between God of Darkness and Elric, it was obviously the most important part of this whole arrangement, because it would decide exactly how Elric would be able to plan his path towards achieving his goals. Because these divine abilities were not just going to be his way to gain strength, rather they'd be his cheat codes. Elric knew a majority of such scenarios where a reincarnated person in mangas and novels would be granted such abilities in these stories. But because of his experience, he had read a lot of these stories and knew where would any type of such so-called divine abilities lead him in the future. So he had to look through all of these carefully and choose the most suitable ones based on his situation when he'll be thrown in sooner in the world of Vantria. Since he had to choose them beforehand, he naturally had to look for the most useful ones with the greatest potential. The ones which would not only help him become stronger, but also become his trump card and save his life whenever he was in a situation where he could most definitely die again. Though it would have been most preferable by the Elric of the past, but now that he was going to give his life another chance, he had to make it easier and more convenient as much as he could. These abilities would not only enable him to accomplish the end game, but also shape his future. "I'm ready. Show me," said Elric with a light smile on his face. "You're allowed to choose only 2 divine abilities. Every god gives them to their heroes, and each god and goddess has created multiple of such unique divine abilities related to their law of existence. And we collectively offer them to all the chosen heroes at the time of summoning. You might as well choose a divine ability created by any other god than me. I can't tell you which god or goddess created which one. However, you won't get to choose these powers again. So you must think about it very carefully." God said and waved his left hand. Suddenly, over 80 huge monoliths, as big as a house, appeared in front of Elric and started lining up in a queue. Some of them emitted gold, some silver, and some bronze light coming out of them, as if they were classified in tiers based on their usefulness. However, there were also 3 dark ones that didn't emit any light at all, more like they were sucking in the nearby light in them. Elric understood that these were the abilities he'd be granted after choosing, and his future approach towards his goal will be dependent on them. He looked at these portraits, and the information about their use and how to use them started flowing in his mind. Mind control, summoning undead, teleportation, telekinesis, telepathy, levitation, integration, mimic clairvoyance, sage's eye. Around 80 of such random abilities appeared on each of these monoliths, and all of them were in their utmost peak grade. They were simply perfect without any flaws. Elric started touching each of these monoliths with his hand, and somehow he was feeling an innate connection towards them. He felt like each one of these divine abilities was calling out to him and asking him to accept them. But Elric didn't stop or fell for the temptation. He sternly kept browsing through all of them one by one. He could not afford to mess it up. After some time, he browsed through all the gold, silver, and bronze monoliths. What's with the bright lights? Why are they shining in different colors? God simply looked at Elric and said, "Gold ones are the most chosen ones by the chosen heroes of all gods and goddesses. Like at least 4 times for the 2 slots they were given. Silver ones 3 times, and bronze ones 2 times. What about those black ones?" queried Elric. "Not even once," God replied. All these abilities are simply amazing and can be used for extremely favorable outcomes. No wonder my predecessors and other heroes of the past chose many of these. If used properly, they can even help me create an empire of my own and reach the strength enough to fight against the demon god within a decade or 2. Simply astounding. Elric nodded in approval, but in the next second, he retorted, "However, all of them are bound to certain conditions. For example, mind control. I will need to keep looking into a person's eyes for at least a minute and have a suggestive conversation to control their minds to work for me, or do my bidding. At the time of fight for life and death, it won't be useful at all because the enemy obviously won't be interested in settling things with words. And the necromancer ability needs me to rob graveyards to make the deceased part of my summon army. Too useful for the future, but also very tedious. Clairvoyance can only see through a certain time in the future, but can't be used consequently. I'll need to wait for a few hours to use it again. Great potential. It can also save me from being tricked by others and stop my possible death as well. But still, the conditions to use it lack potential, as it will only give me a head start, but not actually help me change the situation. Telekinesis has restrictions on distance, or how far my reach is, and also how much weight I can lift or exert through it. Would have been too OP if I could move a mountain with it. Sages, I only gives out information about everything as long as it's not of divine rank or the information is sealed by the gods themselves. But what use could I make of it if I don't have enough skills or means to use such information to get an upper hand? Telepathy needs me to touch the person I want to read the minds of or establish a mind link with. This will definitely help me look like a creep and a pervert for sure. Elric gave a thumb up to God. And then he started listing out all the bothersome terms and conditions of these divine abilities, which were subject to market risks. God, who once had a prideful face when he showed these abilities to Elric and expected a face of awe and worship, was left speechless. These were the goddamn divine abilities for God's sake. And this guy was complaining how they were inconvenient and only useful for certain situations with no flexible uses. He had indirectly flipped a middle finger to God himself, who once presented all these abilities to all his summons that came before Elric. God, for the first time in his billions of years of existence, felt like crying. Elric was basically kicking him in the face over and over. And each time, the intensity was increasing more than before. Even Cravel gave God a look full of pity. Why don't you create your own divine abilities then? God could only retort in his mind. Saying it out loud would only diminish his image as an almighty god who was triggered just by a few words from a dead man's soul. Just as he was about to speak, Elric turned his gaze to the three dark monoliths and started checking them out. Ability absorption, dimensional law, synthesis. Just as the information about these three divine abilities was fully processed by Elric's mind, he was out of words. He read through them, and an expression of puzzlement appeared on his face. The abilities had details on them, such as divine ability, ability absorption, allows the owner of the divine ability to absorb the physical and magical skills, bloodlines, and abilities of the targeted being without any complications or side effects to the owner. However, the owner will still have to follow through with the restrictions and terms of use for these individual abilities. Condition: the target whose abilities are to be absorbed must be dead before using this ability on them. Otherwise, the absorption will be a failure. And the target must not have been dead for too long, and the physical body must be in a shape enough to completely extract these abilities should they entail having something such as blood requirements or body parts. There will be a failure if the target's body is destroyed beyond measure or the required quantity needed for ability absorption is inadequate. Then he read the second divine ability. Divine ability, dimensional law. The owner of this divine ability has access to all the space and void around them. They can open the void and enter it without any harm to the physical body. Also allows a part of the body to be placed inside the void at the same time, while the rest of the body exists in the real world without harming the original body. The distance of travel and time the user can stay inside the void increases with the increase in mastery of the law. Condition: the owner must be extremely efficient in space magic and law. This divine ability is only accessible when the owner has met the prerequisite conditions. Finally, Elric moved to the third divine ability. Divine ability, synthesis, allows the owner to recreate two different physical abilities and magic skills to form a new variant based on the working principles of the abilities and skills in the synthesis procedure. Abilities created will have no side effects on the owner's body or mental condition. This ability can also be used to create creatures by mixing different sets of beings and abilities. Condition: certain levels of prerequisite conditions, such as physical ability and skills required for the process, must be met before synthesis can be done. The strength and specialty of the creatures created will depend upon the base subjects they were experimented with. Elric was out of words again. These three abilities were something he did not expect to be here on the list. He also understood why previous heroes didn't choose these three divine abilities even once. The required conditions for them were indeed very troublesome and hard to achieve, while the others had far more beneficial uses without much risk or effort. But Elric was different from all of them. Unlike those who came before him, they were all either great tacticians, great leaders, or generals of their respective countries and their era. But none of them had the experience of being an otaku, a nerd, and a geek. So naturally, they found these three abilities extremely useless and hard to cultivate. From a normal person's perspective who lived a certain lifestyle and was accustomed to a single thought process, all of these were not worth choosing at all, as they needed a lot of time to be perfected, and definitely a lot of time would be wasted just to meet the perquisites of these divine abilities. For example, they will always have to kill someone or a monster to absorb their abilities. They will have to learn and understand space and time law, which was easier said than done. And synthesis ability will surely have a lot of restrictions upon it when trying to merge two different abilities and creatures as well. So in the long run, these three divine abilities would give them more trouble, waste their time, which would hinder their path to becoming stronger, and even make things complicated as they will have to do their research and spend a lot of time on it as well. So these abilities were the worst options available among all the cheat codes that were offered by the gods. But in the next minute, Elric looked at the god of darkness and said, "I want them. I want all three of them." To his decision, both God and Cravel looked at him together and shouted, "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" God of darkness and Cravel kept staring at Elric as if they were looking at a madman. They were out of wits on why Elric would choose these divine abilities, which were most complicated, very time-consuming to develop, as well as difficult to gain mastery over. There was a reason why these divine abilities were untouched and not even considered by all the previous 8 chosen heroes who came before Elric. But not only did he want to choose these oddities, he also wanted all 3 of them, which was also against the rules set by the gods. What's there to be surprised about? I have my reasons for selecting these 3. You chose me out of those millions of souls because you needed someone different to complete the mission, right? Well, these 3 are the ones I want. There aren't going to be alternatives, and I won't change my mind. Elric said with a firm and resolute tone. Mortal, why must you choose these 3 abilities out of them all? There are plenty of divine abilities that can make you very strong in a short amount of time. Not only will they save you a lot of time, but they'll also help you create an influence in our world to the point where no empire or church will dare to declare an open war with you when your identity is exposed. So why must you waste this chance on the most ignored divine abilities in the past 3,000 years? Cravel decided to ask out of his utmost curiosity towards Elric's decision. As I said before, if it was anyone else who came before me, they'd definitely choose the other divine abilities. But I'm not them, and my circumstances are different from theirs, because none of them were going to be hunted down by the entire world. Unlike them, I can't walk around people openly and declare that I'm the chosen hero of God of Darkness. There's no one coming to my aid, and no one is going to provide for me or look after me. Unlike the other abilities, these 3 can help me hide, survive, and become stronger behind the shadows, and no one will notice or try to uncover my identity. Elric explained his reasoning. His logic was sound, as none of his predecessors were in the same situation as him. And this made him consider his options based on practicality than just becoming stronger in a short time. Besides, you still don't know the potential of these 3 divine abilities at all. Let me put it in simple words. Though they're all complicated and hard to complete mastery over, the number of outcomes I can achieve with this choice are simply astounding. Not only they can help me get stronger bit by bit without raising the suspicion of others, but they will also ensure my survival to the most degree. Something I need desperately after I enter your world. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Elric replied, refusing to go into too many details. He fairly knew exactly what kind of potential did these 3 divine abilities have. Ability absorption was one of the most meta abilities he had seen in hundreds of novels, mangas, and animes. Of course, who didn't know about a 35-year-old guy getting reincarnated as a slime in another world with a similar ability, just like ability absorption, which helped him get stronger by devouring his enemies and monsters to reach a level where even the strongest beings in that new world had to acknowledge him and even slightly be wary of him. So when he saw ability absorption, the first thing Elric thought was how lucky he was and he had already hit the jackpot. But to put the icing on the cake, he saw the second divine ability, Dimensional Law. Any anime fan who watched the story of an outcast child hosting a tailed beast inside him had enough information about one guy who put the entire world at a war just by himself. And he possessed the same ability similar to Dimensional Law, which would allow him to have one part of his body exist in a separate dimension. So when his enemies attacked him, he'd simply face them head-on and take hits even straight at his heart, just to have enemies' weapon pass right through him, while he used that opportunity to kill his enemies by catching them off guard. But the awesomeness of Dimensional Law didn't end there. This divine ability allowed him to open a crack in the void and hide in it for the time being. And with time, as his mastery progressed, he could also travel inside the void and exit out of it somewhere else. So in simple words, there was no actual place that could completely trap him or a place he couldn't enter with this divine ability. For example, he could get out of prison whenever he wanted or get inside a highly protected fortress to kill someone and no one would ever find him. Obviously, Elric won't be able to achieve such results with his non-existent mastery over space law, but with time he could envision himself achieving that feat as well. And to fill your stomach with delicious food, there is the third divine ability, Synthesis. Since Elric wasn't going to have an OP system like many protagonists who get reincarnated in another world where the said system would guide them, help them become stronger, and give them rewards like epic swords or equipment, create stuff out of nowhere and things that shouldn't belong in that world based on its setting, such as culture, technology, and scientific advancement. He needed a way to ensure his safety and find a reliable way that won't just help him become stronger, but rather way too OP. And Synthesis was offering him just that. By using ability absorption, he could gain both physical abilities, bloodline powers, and magical skills of his targets. But that's all there ever will be. If he depended solely on ability absorption, he will naturally have to look for way too stronger enemies to learn their abilities and skills by exposing himself to greater danger. And those powers will vary from each other as well. But with the Synthesis divine ability, not only could he merge the abilities he already learned, but he could also use it to merge different beings. For example, he could simply kill a monster, gain its abilities, and then later use that monster to merge with another monster to create his own version, which will not be any weaker than the former, but rather even more powerful. And Elric felt that these creations of his would naturally be loyal to him. Otherwise, Synthesis would not be called a divine ability if his own creations tried to kill him instead. With this ability, not only he could create a small army of monsters or people for him, but he could also create new beings which he may need to do a specific task or job, which required them to have specific types of skills and physical advantages. In the future, he could just create an OP army of his creations with time, which could become comparable to the army of shadow soldiers of a certain Korean hunter. All Elric needed was just time to get stronger and experiment with these abilities. He naturally believed that this wasn't the only use of these three divine abilities. This was more likely just the cover of the book, and there would be far many more applications and different uses that remained to be explored. Compared to the other divine abilities, these were not as easy or convenient as other divine abilities, but the potential was simply unimaginable. And if he were to fight someone like Demon God on even terms, he needed not only just one form of power, but everything he could find and make use of in the world of Vantria. At the end of the fight, that is. Because all the former chosen heroes of the other 12 gods, as well as his own predecessors, had already made it obvious that they all failed to kill him no matter how strong they had become or whatever divine abilities they selected during the time of summoning. Elric didn't believe that all of them were stupid and ran into a fight to the death with the demon god, without preparing beforehand about every single aspect of the battle and how they were going to emerge victorious. At this time, God finally decided to speak up. Even if I were to comply with your decision, I still need to remind you that you can only choose 2 divine abilities. Not more than that. To his reply, Elric gave him an expression of pity instead. Are you stupid? Geode was startled, and then the next second, he was enraged. What did you just say? Do you think I won't torture you for the end of time, just because I have no choice but to choose you as my representative hero? Geode spoke angrily. To his spine-chilling voice, Elric replied, think about it. You said that this is probably going to be the last chance the gods have to kill the demon god before he becomes a full-fledged god like you. So do you really believe that the other gods are going to keep their word and give only 2 divine abilities to their heroes? For all I know, they'd be giving them at least 4 to 5 divine abilities just to increase their winning chances. After all, whichever god's hero kills the demon god, she would become the entire world's savior. And that would bring fame to that god or goddess name. Fame big enough to have many living beings in the world start worshiping that god. So obviously they won't be holding back. Don't tell me you gods are bound to keep your word for a verbal pact. Ha! Elric explained his reasons for calling God stupid. And even the god of darkness was left speechless and suddenly realized that Elric was right. Given the fact that this was their last chance, no one was going to hold back no matter how much they wanted to honor their pact. And as Elric said, the winner would literally be worshipped by the entire world, and the god who brought them would become the entire world's most famous and worshipped god/goddess. Even for someone like God of Darkness, who was hated and now forgotten by the entire world, this could bring back his former glory overnight. He too was tired and irritated by the constant mockery and banters of the other gods, because of the actions of the 8th hero of darkness. But he could not kill them, just as they could not kill him. So he wanted to say suck it to them as well. This was also a great opportunity for having one up on all the other gods. But he wasn't a fool. He looked at Elric and said, 3 should be the maximum amount of divine abilities you should choose, because these abilities will be embedded into your soul and need a fraction of your soul essence to keep functioning. With time, your soul will get stronger in our world, but so will the consumption of soul essence. Any more than 3 divine abilities, and it'll adversely affect your soul and your future strength. Since the other gods aren't any knowledgeable about death and souls like me, I'm sure those idiots will give 4 to 5 divine abilities to their heroes. God replied as a grin appeared on his face, because he liked the idea of other gods suffering a misfortune. Fine, I agree with you. You can have all 3 of these, God said, and the 3 house-sized monoliths exploded into millions of pieces, and 3 different colored orbs of pure energy came out of them. All 3 of these orbs quickly came in contact with Elric's ethereal form and started merging with him. In just a minute, they completely merged with his soul form without leaving any traces, completely unifying with Elric. Now, it is time for us to prepare your body, and then you can enter Vantria, God said with a little bit of excitement. But just when he was about to speak again, Elric spoke again. Wait. Elric looked towards Cravel this time and asked, aren't you going to give me something as well? What? Why would I give you something, mortal? Hasn't my liege already given you 3 divine abilities? Cravel asked in a puzzled tone. That's not enough, given the dire situation we're in. It'll hardly help me out. Or is it that you don't want to help me? Don't tell me all your grand display of loyalty and respect is just for the show, and you don't want to help in your liege getting back to his glory days. Elric asked in a provocative tone. He willfully questioned Cravel's loyalty with the purpose of riling him up. What did you say, mortal? Cravel was angered to his core. Even red fumes were coming out of his glowing red eyes from inside his helmet. I'm just saying, if it was anyone else in your position, they would have offered to provide extra help for their master without question. I'm just surprised that you didn't, Elric said as a look of disappointment appeared in his eyes. You dare. I'll show you my loyalty towards my liege. Don't look down on me, mortal, Cravel said as he regained his composure. And in the next second, 6 different ancient symbols of different sizes and colors appeared in front of Cravel and started moving towards Elric's spectral form. Quickly, all these ancient symbols started entering his incorporeal form, and one by one, they appeared around different parts of his soul form, as if they were some ancient runes engraved on his body. The next second, Elric's mind received the information about what exactly were these ancient symbols and what did he actually receive. Holy fuck, Elric said to himself. He looked at Cravel with the utmost respect for the first time, because the information he received also unveiled who Cravel really was. Elric only knew that Cravel was a demigod, but nothing more than that. But after he received the information in his head, he finally found out the true title of Cravel. Elric now finally understood that the being wasn't just some lackey of the god of darkness, but an almighty personage who would be respected and feared by everyone no matter where he went. The ancient symbols were actually blessings that were bestowed upon Elric, and through their description, he saw the name Cravel, the war deity. Yes, the war deity. The goddamn mutafriggin war deity. The being standing in front of him was the one who reached the level of a demigod by mastering all forms of war, all types of weapons, magic spells, and all types of combat techniques. Otherwise, he wouldn't have earned that title at all. If there was a title of God of War, Cravel would be it. As soon as Elric learned Cravel's real identity as the war deity, he started looking at him differently. As someone who grew up reading books about great warriors of their respective eras on Earth, and then later getting hooked up on war-related novels and other forms of platforms, Elric had developed a form of respect towards such individuals as, by definition, these were the men every man aspired to be. Elric diverted his attention towards the blessings he received, and he was left speechless again. Blessings of the war deity. 1. War dominance, active. Emits an aura of dominance and supremacy 5 times stronger than the targeted enemy. The pressure and murderous aura will be sensed by all those who stand in the close perimeter of the host. The area affected will keep increasing with an increase in the host's personal strength and rank. The war dominance aura and its effects will be dependent on the difference between the user and the target's own individual strength. 2. Weapon mastery, passive. Mastery over all weapons and things/objects that could be used as a weapon. The mastery over all weapons existing in the world keeps increasing with the level of host proficiency in them. Current level, or rank, master level, passive. Example, for swordsmanship, the host is already at a level of a sword master. Mastery levels, amateur, intermediate, expert, master, grandmaster, saint, deity. 3. Combat techniques mastery, passive. Grants the user knowledge and experience over all forms of close combat techniques. Also allows the user to understand and copy any target's combat techniques after practicing them. Current rank, master in all known combat techniques by the war deity. Mastery increases only when the user practices and performs these techniques to meet certain understanding and criteria. 4. Survival instinct, passive. Grants the ability to sense extreme danger and killing intent directed towards the user. The range of this ability will keep increasing as the user gets stronger. Note, ability is upgradable and can be merged with other similar abilities. 5. Berserk God mode, active. Allows the user to achieve 5 times the physical strength and stamina for a short time. Note, not applicable to magical skills or mana capacity. The host will be in a weakened state, only having 30% of the user's strength for the next 24 hours after the blessing activation period ends. 6. War deity body, passive. Grants a body capable of becoming 2 times stronger than the previous stage every time the user goes through long and tiring battles and breaks the threshold of his capabilities. After going through the blessings he received, Elric simply forgot how to speak, because what Cravel gave him wasn't just mastery of weapons or abilities to dominate his enemies in battle. What he gave him was the biggest head start anyone could ask for if they were thrown into an unknown world. Elric was born with a weak body and never had physical training at anything, not even normal sports or self-defense techniques. He could hold a sword in a video game or his dreams only. Hell, he didn't even know how to properly hold a sword either without looking like an idiot or ending up hurting himself instead. Unlike what the God of Darkness gave him through the 3 divine abilities he chose. These blessings wouldn't just help him become stronger or help him survive. Rather, they'd be far more useful than just gaining abilities or creating an army that will serve him. With these blessings, he'd save years spent on learning and perfecting different types of weapons and how best to use them. Also, learning combat techniques was no joke. It took many people dozens of years to perfect them or reach just the rank of a master. But not only Elric would already have built-in knowledge and understanding of these, but he'd also be proficient right when he entered Vantria. He was already at master rank, which was just unbelievable for a guy like him who never had actual combat experience or killed anyone in his entire life. Survival instinct would help him sense if someone was targeting him from behind or following him from the shadows. That way he could be prepared to face a sudden attack or an ambush and might as well dodge a sudden arrow shot at his head. This was just too useful, in his opinion, since survival instinct was something developed only by people with decades of experience in hunting or someone who had been through thousands of battles in their life. For someone like Elric, who would be hunted down sooner or later if the word of his true identity as chosen hero of God of Darkness was to be leaked, survival instinct would save his life on many occasions. Not on just the battlefield, but it will also alert him in random and normal places if someone far stronger than him was targeting or wanted to harm him based on their killing intent. He'd know whom not to fight with, and simply need to run away for his life. And there was also the Berserk God mode. Like the description implied, he'd be 5 times stronger for a short time, and it could save his life when he was truly in a pinch. Let's say somehow his dimensional law ability didn't work, or he couldn't escape inside the void for some reason, such as the surrounding area being sealed by spatial law or some type of barrier or formation. Elric would be left at the mercy of fate. But with Berserk God mode, he'd receive a huge spike in his strength, and it could be helpful enough to let him escape or even face his enemy head-on, who could be much stronger than him. This was a life-saving cheat. Code indeed. And let's not even talk about War Deity Body. This thing would just make him a total T-Rex compared to other heroes of the other gods. Because whether he liked it or not, Elric would be put in situations where he'd need to fight someone in authority like the forces of the Empire or even people from the Church operating in that empire, given his true identity. He could see himself clashing against the other chosen heroes in the future because they too would be well informed about the act of his predecessor, the 8th chosen hero of darkness. So these heroes will naturally think of him as someone serving the evil or someone they had to exact revenge upon for their predecessors. So, with the War Deity Body, he'd become twice as stronger every time he went past his limits, which naturally will require him to fight a lot of battles and go beyond his capabilities, and also will be on very rare occasions, most likely in the battle for life and death. But this can give him an upper hand over the other heroes in terms of physical strength alone. So it will also be extremely helpful in the near future. Elric finally broke out of his entranced state and looked at Cravel again. He didn't hold any of his mocking or disappointed expression and said, "I take my words back." After saying so, he bowed towards Cravel with the utmost sincere expression. Cravel was left with a puzzled expression again. This mortal was questioning his loyalty towards his liege not a minute ago, and now retracted his statement and bowed half his body in front of him. Cravel, who was of the size of 5-story building at the moment, could see Elric's way of showing respect. God of Darkness humphed slightly without showing the jealousy he was feeling, because Elric didn't do that to him so far at all. Instead, he said fuck off, bastard, motherfucker, stupid, moron, and many things he forgot to count. And because of this, Cravel was happy with Elric again. He said, "Stand up. No need for such formalities. Anyway, did you like my blessings?" Cravel asked without masking the smugness in his tone. Elric simply nodded like a puppy in response. "Well then, here's something else. It's not a blessing, but some of my knowledge you will find very useful while venturing inside Vantria." Cravel said. Soon, a divine formation appeared over Elric's soul form, and a light made of different and bright colors descended towards his head. Elric started processing the gift he received. As he opened his eyes, he was again left with a joyful expression on his face. What he received wasn't any ability or skills. For the first time, he received a form of information and knowledge that he would be needing no matter where he went. knowledge of all languages known to ward deity Cravel in the world of Vantria. Elric had worries about this from the beginning, just that he didn't speak about it at all. He was going into a different world, where existed different cultures, races, species, cultures, and religions in different regions, kingdoms, empires, and things he didn't even know about yet. So naturally, this world wasn't going to be someplace where everybody for some reason spoke in English. He was certain that God of Darkness and Cravel weren't talking with him in English either, as their gestures and body language acted very differently in accordance with their words and tone. They were definitely using some type of magic or conversing with him using a telepathic connection. Many manga and novel authors always skipped this part in their work. In their stories, even the most ancient civilizations in different worlds or even planets, which existed tens of thousands of years ago, also spoke in English. As if this wasn't a different world, but a Hollywood movie where even Wakandans spoke in English despite having their own mother tongue. What Cravel gifted him had saved tons of trouble, as not only he would be able to converse with people inside Vantria, he'd be able to communicate with and understand all the residents and species existing that resided in those regions. This also included understanding various types of languages, whether in form of verbal speech or writing. So he won't be lost in the world if he went somewhere unknown. After calculating everything that has happened so far, ever since his reincarnation, Elric found himself extremely lucky. He was going to get another chance at life despite refusing and wanting to die again. Neither was he randomly thrown into a different world without any prior knowledge, nor suddenly woke up inside someone else's body. He was given a choice to even choose in which way he was going to enter Vantria. And unlike hundreds of reincarnated people in the stories he read, he was actually clear on his goal and how he will make his approach. Although he wasn't given some OP system or someone like Soul Remnant of some heaven-defying monster or a nascent rank cultivators to accompany him on his journey, he still had the option to choose his divine abilities and had the time to plan how he will ensure his survival. He received enough superficial information about Vantria and how things work there, and what not to do if he wanted to stay alive. Cravel's blessings gave him the biggest head start and also an upper hand against those who will be or already were summoned inside the world of Vantria. So he can fight against them as well if the situation arose. After evaluating everything happened so far, Elric was content and truly happy. It felt like fate or destiny, whatever it was called, tried to make amends for his former life, which he didn't find worth living at all. This time, he was given the choice of which way he will live his new life. Elric wanted nothing more than freedom and control over his own fate. He looked at God of Darkness and Cravel and said, "I'm ready." God of Darkness and Cravel both nodded at him. "Have you thought of how your new body should look like? After we're done with that, I can send you inside our world." Geode asked. Elric then started giving him specifications of his new body, and after 1 hour of going over every minute detail and many redos, Elric's final physical body was ready. For some reason, Cravel approved more of it while God of Darkness found it very lacking. Elric, on the other hand, was very pleased with his new look and the body he was going to live with in his new life. From now on, Elric Johnson no longer exists. From now on, my name is Khan, Elric declared. A new name for a new life, he said with a newfound will to live. Suddenly yellow intrinsic patterns appeared on Elric's body and were ingrained into it. They disappeared without a trace the next second. Geode spoke. "This is a link between you and me, and also the way for us to know that you're still alive. Let's do it," Elric said, ready to embark on his new journey. However, unbeknownst to Elric, another red ancient and divine pattern appeared on his back, but didn't emit any light. Both Geode and Cravel were fully aware of its existence, but didn't speak or act suspiciously as if nothing happened and it wasn't intentional. God of Darkness didn't waste any more time and simply merged Elric's soul form with a newly created physical body. And after they were merged perfectly, he opened the very crack in the void from where he and Cravel entered inside the world boundary. "I'm sending you somewhere remote and safe. Somewhere other gods, archmages of empires, or popes of churches won't be able to detect your arrival. What happens from there will depend on you. And we won't be able to talk after this unless you find a way to recreate monastery and temples for me again. And do remember the most important thing. God of Darkness paused his words and continued, trust nobody and never let your guard down. God commanded in his firm and majestic tone as if it was his decree. Elric nodded back in affirmation. He understood the importance of not revealing his secrets and relying on only himself more than the beings in front of him. The crack exerted a form of gravitational pull on Elric, now Khan, sending him to another destination. After Khan's personage disappeared from the world boundary, as the void crack also closed, both the God of Darkness and Cravel were the only remainder entities. Do you think he fell for it? Asked Cravel to God in a bemused tone. It seems so. He probably thought he sucked out every form of advantage from us, whether the divine abilities or the blessings. Well, it was within expectations, responded the God of Death/Darkness. Good. Acting like a fool is an experience I abhor to have to go through again, said Cravel and stretched his arms. We should start making our moves as well, my liege, said the war deity in an elated tone. Yes, we have a limited time on our hands to accomplish our plans, said the God, and then continued in a grim but anticipatory tone. I'm eager to see his reaction when we meet again. Inside the world of Vantria, in a deep jungle unknown, a small void crack appeared 5 meters above the ground, covered with dark green and lush grass. Suddenly, a naked body of a man jumped down from the void crack and landed on his right knee and right fist on the ground, stabilizing himself in just a second. Superhero landing, said Khan, and stood tall with fervor. Wade was right. It is indeed hard on your knees. Khan finally spoke with an elated tone as he finally entered Vantria, revealing his pleased smile. Let's start the next chapter of my life. Elric's new body. Now Khan was something he always dreamt of and wanted to have in his ideal standards of a physical body. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall, normal white skin tone same as his previous life. He had an angled but somewhat wider jaw. His face was well-proportioned and very handsome as well as memorable. He had bulging muscles and six-pack abs. Unlike his previous life, this time his hair color was completely black instead of brown. They were smooth, soft, and wavy. His hair was done from the right side of his face. Author, take down notes, boys. If you want six-pack abs without working out, all you have to do is commit suicide and get reincarnated. Thanos, a small price to pay for salvation. His build was very balanced. His upper body had wider shoulders and big arms. His chest was big enough to align well with his mesomorphic build. His forearms were well proportioned as well, while the legs resembled that of an athlete. From his appearance, he looked around 25 to 26 years old. Someone who would have a bodybuilding background or someone who trained in gymnastics. His facial structure was something that would be very striking no matter where he went. He chose to base it on the combination of both Bruce Wayne, a.k.a. Batman, and Dick Grayson, a.k.a. Nightwing, two of the most handsome fictional characters he ever came across in his past life. His appearance wasn't too manly, but not too boyish either. That way he could look like someone not to be messed with and not too broody or serious either. So both younger and older people could approach him easily without feeling threatened or excluded. He chose this age and build because of many reasons. Mainly because he didn't like or more likely detested stories where MC is reincarnated inside a 15-year-old kid who somehow can stand toe-to-toe against overbearingly powerful adults and people who train for their entire lives thanks to the almighty plot armor. He was 30 years old in his former life, for God's sake. Naturally, he wouldn't want to look like a kid again. And 30 or more would also make him look like a middle-aged person, which would stop him from entering some places or mixing in a circle of youngsters. So 25 was the ideal and reasonable age for appearance, in his opinion. Khan was brimmed with life and joy. He could finally feel the sensation of having a body again. He could feel the chill in the air and the breeze going past him. He smelled the earthly scent in the air. This was the time of early morning, so the sunrise brightened up his surrounding. This wasn't just old and going to a different world, but a completely new and reborn person coming into existence. Even the sensation from the surroundings and surge of emotion felt exhilarating as Khan took a deep breath and finally felt alive. Elric, aka Khan, didn't know how long it had been since he died on Earth. Maybe years or decades or even thousands of years. But he didn't care about that now. This was going to be the world he would live in from now on. This was his second chance at life. Wait, I don't have a single cloth on my body, Khan exclaimed and suddenly shouted, looking towards the sky. You damn cheapskate of a god. You couldn't even give me some clothes? God of darkness, my ass. They should call you God of beggars instead. Khan said furiously. God of darkness was very pitiful to send him naked to a new world. But he quickly came to terms with it. It wasn't the most important thing now. Well, based on the average story patterns of reincarnation novels and mangas, I will soon find some lone traveler in the jungle who is being chased by monsters, or some princess who is either being attacked by bandits or have people chasing after her. Or there could be a lady taking a bath in a nearby pond or waterfall. Which one will it be? Khan spoke to himself and started looking around, growling. But in the next moment, he heard a very grim and deathly growl from behind him, and the survival instinct ability kicked in, giving him goosebumps on his entire body. The growl felt like it belonged to some wild beast, a predator at that. Khan turned his head around and saw what was standing just 5 meters behind him. 3 giant wolves, around 7 feet tall each. Their eyes were completely red, and their pupils looked like they were focusing on their prey. 2 of them had a mix of black and white fur, while the one standing in the front had completely crimson-red fur. It looked like it was the leader of the pack. These 3 wolves were prying at Khan, trying to gauge how strong their morning breakfast was. To their surprise, Khan was already having beads of sweat falling from his forehead. All he could do is say one word. Fuck. Amidst a vast and dark green forest, ran a naked man without the care of having onlookers like an exhibitionist. It's not like he wanted to, but he simply didn't have time to look for clothes or something to cover him. Behind the man ran 3 golden retrievers, 3 wolves. Khan was running for his life as the 3 giant wolves ran behind with full murderous intent in their eyes and hunger in their stomachs. This was not the welcome Elric now Khan had imagined. WTF. That's not how a protagonist of a story is introduced in a new world. That damn fucker sent me right in front of a pack of wolves. Khan cursed God of Darkness for having extremely bad timing and a choice of place to send him into Vantria. But to no avail, all he could do was run off for his life. Khan thought it'd be an easy job to kill monsters like they do in novels and mangas, but damn, these monsters weren't easy to defeat at all. The 3 wolves behind him were seasoned veterans. When he tried to run in any direction, one of them would close his way to exit and another one would close off the other possible route Khan could take. And the leader of this trio was even fiercer. The Crimson Wolf didn't stop trying to go for the kill every time it attacked Khan. Every move was done in a way to finish off its prey in a single sweep. Khan was truly cornered because of their excellent teamwork. Now he understood how lethal just a pack of wolves was. Nothing like how they show in novels, mangas, and animes where an inexperienced MC easily kills off an entire pack, just using some lame magic skill or a single swing of a sword. These natural predators, things knew how to hunt. If not for his extremely well-toned body, full of muscles and agile build, Khan would be barbecued by these wolves already. The trio kept running after Khan as the latter kept running like Usain Bolt. Only when Khan came near a cliff did he stop. Damn it, no way around it. Wait, did they just intentionally leave me here? Khan asked himself. Because this was indeed a great strategy. Because whether the wolves killed him or he jumped down, Khan was bound to die, and the wolves were bound to enjoy a delicious meal. Khan glared towards the wolves, mainly at the Crimson Wolf, who looked like the alpha. Khan knew he had war dominance aura to scare off his enemies thanks to the blessings given by Kravel, the war deity. But he didn't know exactly what were his strength level and the wolves hunting him. There wasn't any status window here telling him what his level and stats were and how strong his pursuers were compared to him. What do I do? Should I jump down instead? Khan asked himself and took a look behind the cliff. Strong winds blew past his naked body, and he saw how tall the cliff was above the ground level at the bottom. Damn it, I'll definitely die if I jump down from here. Khan had no other way to get out of his current predicament. There were many things he wasn't sure about, such as what if he even used both War Dominance Aura and Berserk God Mode together, and even that's still not enough to beat or even escape from his opponents. These were wolves after all, not humans who would run out of breath after running extremely fast for some minutes. At this moment, the red wolf started walking towards Khan with a visible mockery on its face. They had already seen that Khan only looked big for a human, but was not exactly brave or strong at all. Curse my luck. Looks like I have no other choice. Though I don't know if I'll survive against these bastards, it's still better than jumping down. Khan finally decided to give it all to his only chance. Forget about killing the demon god. He looked like he couldn't even kill a damn wolf here. Khan also didn't know how to activate his abilities yet, but he didn't feel like there wasn't something like a command word there either. Let's give it a try, he said to himself, and thought about him being superior as well as stronger than his enemy now. Khan remembered the part in the description of war dominance that it also depended on his emotions. Since he had been running like a coward all this time, he didn't think about using it this way. He quickly calmed his mind and looked at the approaching Crimson Wolf. The other two wolves, as usual, covered his right and left sides to not let him escape. Khan finally cooled down and thought about that one feeling he rarely felt in his past life. The feeling of power and absolute domination. Like bloody hell, I'm dying in this unknown place. I finally got my second chance. Nobody is taking it away from me. Khan shouted in his mind and raised his anger towards the approaching wolf. Suddenly, a black aura started exuding out of his body as Khan raised his will to kill the wolf in front of him to survive. It was kill or be killed for real this time. In just the next few seconds, the aura that covered him dimmed a lot, but it didn't disappear completely. Rather, the tangible pressure around him increased as if the gravitational force around Khan became much denser and heavier. The red wolf faltered its footsteps and felt like something as heavy as a boulder had been placed on its body. Its hind legs started giving out and its back arched down as well. It looked towards Khan again, only to find him hard to focus at. The crimson red wolf felt like Khan was no longer the meek prey, but something that was going to hunt them instead. But it tried to defy this pressure and forced itself to walk towards Khan again. It was just 5 meters away from its prey now. Khan on the other end was stunned. Damn it! It's not enough, he yelled in his mind. What about the combat techniques? I can't find a way to activate them either. Where the fuck is my game system, dude? Khan cursed in his head. The war dominance aura he was excluding wasn't strong enough to completely suppress the enemy in front of him. He also had the knowledge of all combat techniques given by Cravel, but he simply didn't know how to use or activate them at the present moment. Don't tell me that they'll activate when I try to fight with this wolf for real. Like how real warriors fought in battle. And there's no command or way to perform these combat techniques. Khan thought, if this was the only way, then he had no other choice but to seek out his enemy in a frontal clash. Berserk God Mode. Khan shouted and dashed towards the Crimson Wolf, which was trying to attack Khan. Unlike the other two wolves who couldn't tolerate the pressure of his aura and slumped down on the ground. Khan ran towards the Alpha Wolf and quickly covered the distance between them. The Crimson Wolf bore his sharp claws and swung his left claw towards the enemy's chest. At this moment, however, Khan felt like something happened to his own body. The moment he thought about going in Berserk God Mode, he felt like his muscles suddenly gained 5 times the strength. His feet felt like they could move much faster, and as the claw of the Alpha Wolf was coming towards him, he gained a form of perception and his reflexes were twice faster than before. Khan instantly slid below the upcoming claw and quickly gave an uppercut towards the Red Wolf's mouth. Bam! The Crimson Red Wolf got struck in the jaw and lost its balance. It was already fighting against the pressure from Khan's war dominance aura, and as he was struck hard in its mouth, the Alpha Wolf momentarily lost all footing, just enough to make it fall on the ground. Thump! The wolf fell, and Khan, on the other hand, felt like his fist nearly broke. Even in Berserk God Mode, which would make him 5 times stronger for a short amount of time, this barely met the mark to just land a solid hit on the Crimson Wolf. This meant that he was very weak against these monsters to begin with. Khan quickly hit the fallen wolf on its head and groped its neck in a chokehold. His muscles and veins were popping out of his body, and he felt like he was on a huge adrenaline spike, but his brain also told him that this was just temporary, so he had to be decisive and not waste a single second. Khan mustered all his strength and used all his force on trying to snap the struggling wolf's neck. The wolf wriggled around with Khan on its body and tried to bite him with its large and long fangs, struggling to get out of Khan's arms. Ah! Khan shouted and used all his strength to break the wolf's neck. Crack! The wolf whimpered for the last time before its body slumped down on the ground, dead on the spot. Crimson Wolf author, killed by my own MC in my first ever cameo, cries in a corner. Ding! Suddenly, a ding notification sound appeared in Khan's head. Khan, on the other hand, didn't pay any attention to it and quickly ran towards the wolf that was covering his left escape route. He came close to the already slumping wolf and joined both of his hands in a joint fist and quickly slammed it on the wolf's head with all his might. A cracking sound was heard from the wolf's head, and blood started gushing out of its ears and mouth. Khan was already on his last arrow and knew he didn't have any more time. He gathered his remaining strength and ran towards the last remaining wolf who covered his right exit route. Khan could feel his strength running out already, but he kept running and came close to the wolf, which finally somehow started resisting Khan's war dominance aura. No, you don't. Khan yelled and jumped with all his strength in his legs and performed a downside kick like how they showed in martial arts movies. Bang! The kick landed right between the wolf's skull and broke in half. Blood splattered on the ground, and Khan, who didn't time his landing and footing properly, also lost his balance and fell. I did it! Khan shouted as his body slumped on the ground, and he lost all the strength in his body. Only now did he realize how much toll did the Berserk God mode took on his body. Currently, he didn't even have enough strength to lift his head or change the side of his body. He was laying down in the grass and soil. He could feel the sand on his face and back as small pebbles were hurting his body. Barely made it. Khan came to realize how big of a close call this was. Any second later, and he'd be ripped to shreds by that last wolf whose corpse was lying just a meter close to him. For the love of God, this hurts. Khan could feel his entire body suffering immense pain, mainly his fists and his right leg that he used to kill the last wolf. Ding! Congratulations to the host for unlocking the following abilities for the first time. War Dominance, Combat Techniques, Berserk God Mode, War Deity Body. The host has learned Chokehold, Vertical Stomp, and Joint Fist combat techniques. Current mastery for these three, the combat techniques, 30% on Master Rank. War Deity Body will undergo an upgrade after the host is no longer in a weakened state. Khan was flustered and gobsmacked after hearing this sudden voice in his mind. Wait a minute. He spoke with his mind jumbled and heart palpitating. Khan heard all the notifications inside his head. He already expected something like this to happen when he killed the Crimson Wolf and heard the notification sound in his head. To his surprise, Khan not only learned how to activate War Dominance Aura and Berserk God Mode, but he also broke through the current threshold of his capacity and already went past his limits to meet the conditions to unlock his War Deity Body. This meant he would be twice stronger when he recovered his strength again. The very first encounter Khan had in Vantria, as soon as he entered, was a life-or-death battle, and he barely managed to survive. Who knew if he ended up dying here? Would anyone ever know or care? He'd die, just a nameless death. Again. Still, the biggest surprise so far was the system. Khan tried to focus his mind again on these notifications in his mind. There was no interface panel or screen board for him to check these notifications in a list or scroll through them one by one. It was as if this system was part of his consciousness itself and somehow acted like his mind when he thought about it. Tell me more. He tried commanding it. 3 dead bodies found near the host. The host is advised to use Ability Absorption Divine Ability and raise his strength. Also, the host can use Synthesis Divine Ability to merge 2 of these entities to create a subordinate. The host must salvage and eat the cores situated near the hearts of these 3 entities. The robot-like voice stopped, informing Khan about his accomplishments and what he could do to recover and get strong. "Hey, system thing. What are you exactly?" queried Khan sternly. The system is akin to an artificial intelligence user interface created to aid the host in order to efficiently and effectively use ability absorption and synthesis divine abilities, as they are similar to an overwhelmingly vast archive of information related to different abilities, bloodlines, different species inhabiting this world's spells, powers, and knowledge that is extremely sufficient for the host's survival in Vantra. It can help the host to effectively use and categorize information about levels, physical and magical statistics, ranks of jobs, monsters, weapons, formations, and different types of powers, inform the so-called system. Cool. At least I have some sort of guide for at least basic stuff and reminders about things in this world I do not know of. Khan said. Thankfully, this was just an assistive UI and not some external or parasitic entity living inside his mind. Soon, Khan felt all the strength leaving him as he went to sleep due to exhaustion. 10 hours later, Khan opened his eyes and looked around. He was still in that same place, and the bodies of the three wolves were lying in the same places where they died. Khan finally felt like he had the strength enough to get up. Luckily, no other predator came here to eat him after he fainted, as this was a steep cliffside where the wolves led him, isolated from many animals and monsters alike. He stood up from the ground and walked towards the Crimson Wolf. He remembered the notifications he had before he fell asleep. Khan looked towards the body of the Red Wolf. He still could not believe what happened just this morning. He glanced at the body with a look of exacting his revenge. Well, how the turntables. He smirked and gloated about his victory, which he barely achieved by a hair's breadth. Well then, time to eat. He was going to use ability absorption on the Red Wolf, as he felt like the leader of the pack and was obviously much stronger than the others. Absorb, Khan commanded as he mentally thought about acquiring its abilities. Host needs to touch the specimen first. The voice in his mind replied. "Ah, my bad," said Khan, and touched the body of the Red Wolf and imagined absorbing its abilities. Suddenly, some sort of suction force was exerted from his palm that was touching the Red Wolf, and in just a matter of seconds, the body of the Alpha Wolf looked drained out of the blood, and the claws and fangs it had were reduced to nothing, as if they were sucked inside something. Ding! Ability absorption divine ability unlocked. The host has acquired the following abilities. Alpha Wolf's Claw, Alpha Wolf's Howl, Long Stride, Hunt Perception, Predator's Eyes, informed the system. Then it continued again. Synthesis divine ability unlocked. Predator's Eyes ability was synthesized and merged under War Dominance to increase its effectiveness. The host will be able to exude a predatory intent towards the target when using War Dominance aura. Khan was truly surprised. Not only did he learn physical abilities like the first three mentioned, but he also acquired the innate skills of a wolf like Hunt Perception and Predator's Eyes, which would prove useful for him to survive inside this jungle for the time being. By now, there was nothing left inside the body of the Red Wolf but its bones. All the meat and blood were gone. Only its hide was left completely untouched, and a red orb-like thing, which according to the inner system inside Khan's head, was the core. Khan thought of using Wolf's Claw, and both his hands turned pitch black. His nails started growing from his fingers at a fast pace. They were no longer just nails, but claws at this point. Khan saw this coming and didn't waste any more time overthinking it. He tore through the hide from various places to use it to cover up enough parts of his body for now. It was already around evening, so he needed something to cover himself up. And since these three wolves were very big to begin with, just this red wolf's hide was enough to cover his waist like a towel. Khan took the core out of the body. It was completely clean, not even a single drop of blood on it. He remembered the system voice telling him to must eat it to get stronger. Currently, he barely had the strength to walk because he used Berserk God mode earlier, so he had to regain his strength and prepare for the night. He had to keep himself safe, so having more strength was a must. Khan gulped down the reddish, orb-like thing which was sized around a thumb of a grown man. Suddenly, he heard more sounds in his mind. Monster core absorbed and assimilated with host's body. Mana capacity increased by 5 points. All physical attributes raised by 1 point. Khan felt a bit of his strength recovered, just very minute at the moment, because he was in a weakened state. He wrapped the hide around his waist and left over around his shoulders like a scarf. He walked towards the bodies of the other two wolves and dragged them towards each other. How do I merge them? He asked the system in his mind. Host must place his hands on both specimens. The host is advised to keep at least one core intact in the original bodies to get a better success rate and stronger specimen. What if I keep both of the cores during the procedure? Khan asked. In such case, the resultant creature will unlock evolution ability, and such subordinate can be further merged with another subordinate which also has unlocked evolution. Both these entities can be used to create a higher variant species and a more powerful subordinate. The system replied to his queries. Understood. By the way, will the resultant creature of synthesis be loyal to me or at least won't attack me? Yes. Since subordinates are created for the sole purpose of aiding and protecting the host, they will be programmed to obey the host and will always be ready to die to protect and serve the host. Khan got more information about synthesis divine ability now. He needed to learn and know about every advantage he had so he could stay alive in this forest for now. Can the system interact with outside things and aid me in any way? Khan asked out his final question as he needed to understand the full capacities of the guide system he was given. No, the system cannot act outside of the host body. It's only created to help the host to understand the working of his divine abilities and blessings. The system has no control over anything the host doesn't have physical contact with. The host is advised to rely on himself to become stronger and survive in the world. The system is only an interface created to guide the host through normal procedures and inform the workings of the abilities and skills. Khan now fully understood the extent of his inner system. Unlike some OP systems in the novels and mangas, his system was more of an assistant than some formidable external entity that could create stuff out of nowhere, help him copy knowledge just by touching a book, or had a shop to buy stuff from using some sort of point system. This was nothing but a program left inside his soul to help him gain a better understanding of his abilities and use them in the most efficient way. He had to rely on his brain and body while wandering in the world. Khan came close to both the dead wolves' bodies, placed his hands on both of them, and said, "Merge." Unlike what Khan expected, nothing happened for the next few seconds. Khan wondered if he gave some wrong command or something. Just as he was about to speak again, a black shadow appeared under his palms and covered both bodies. And in the next few seconds, both these shadows stretched out and converged together. The bodies of the wolves were completely engulfed inside the shadow and disappeared as if the bodies were absorbed by the shadow. For over a minute, the shadow kept wriggling around, and finally, a four-legged creature started appearing. This creature was 7 feet tall, had complete black fur over its body, and eyes completely red with black pupils in them. Congratulations to the host for creating the first subordinate. The results of his synthesis are as follows. Name, unnamed. Species, dire wolf. Abilities, sonic howl, predator's eyes, hunt perception, sprinter, dire wolf claws, shadow merge. Subordinate has inherited all the physical and mental traits of the specimens used during synthesis. Subordinate has unlocked evolution skill. It can be evolved further or merged with another subordinate. The host is advised to give it a fitting name. Great! Finally, I don't have to worry about something attacking me during the night, Khan said as he sighed in relief. Then he asked the system again, System, can you create an interface or panel to compare me and this wolf based on our strength levels and attributes? Yes, commanded adjustments can be made, but comparison can only be done between the host and the subordinate. To create comparisons between external beings, the host must touch them or form a physical contact. Here are the following statistics as requested by the host. Name Khan host. Species, human. Level 1. Strength 2. Agility 2. Dexterity 3. Defense 2. Mana 5. Name, unnamed. Species, dire wolf variant. Level 10. Strength 25. Agility 20. Dexterity, 20. Defense, 10. Mana, 15. Comparison made based on the physical state before the host underwent weakened state, reported the system. Khan was left speechless. Only now did he fully understand how close he was to death. If not for Ward Dominant's aura suppressing the wolves and his Berserk God mode giving him the strength to kill them, he would be dead for sure, because all the three wolves were at least 5 levels stronger compared to him. And the new synthesized wolf was created using 2 complete bodies and their cores, so it was twice stronger than them, and even a higher version of wolves called the dire wolves. Just imagining what would happen if Khan had fought against the wolf standing in front of him instead. This gave him goosebumps with just the thought of it. He was lucky that this wolf was his underling instead. He came close to the giant dire wolf, placed his palm on its head, and spoke. Since I already killed that alpha wolf, and I'm not an idiot to call you Kuro, Wolfie, or Feru just because you're black and are a wolf. From now on your name shall be Omega, declared Khan. According to mainstream belief, Alpha was the first and Omega was the last in the pack hierarchy. But here, Khan was obviously going to be the Alpha as the master and leader of the group, while the name Omega signified the word. And the end Khan nearly met on his first day of arrival in Vantria. Ding! Congratulations to the host for naming his first subordinate. The loyalty of the subordinate towards the host increased by 50%. The system voice rang and informed Khan. What's this loyalty increase about? Aren't they already loyal to me? He asked. It's a specific condition to unlock a special skill between the host and the subordinates, replied the system. Good. If naming them helps raise their loyalty, then I'll have to be creative and thoughtful, Khan said and patted giant Omega's head like petting a dog. Omega was a 3-meter-tall dire wolf, as big as a normal house on Earth. It's much bigger than any wolves I have ever seen, even if this is a different world. He spoke skeptically. Omega sat down in front of Khan and bowed his head without looking Khan in the eyes. It felt as if Omega was submitting himself, acknowledging Khan as its master. The next moment, Khan felt a sort of connection towards Omega, as if the wolf was an extension of his own body and consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Khan asked Omega to check whether his guess was right. Omega nodded in response and stood back up. Good. Now go and hunt something I could eat. Not too big, and meat shouldn't be too hard to chew. Khan commanded Omega. Since he was under the weakened state as a repercussion of using the Berserk God mode, he barely had the strength to walk and could not go to find something to eat. He thought about having something to eat first, because he had no energy left in him, and meat was the best source to regain strength. After Omega ran off towards the bushes and completely disappeared out of his sight, Khan called to the system again. System, can you help me create fire? Khan asked curiously. What am I, your mother? Do it yourself. System replied with banter instead. Wait, say that again. Host is advised to rely on himself. System cannot help the host in such tasks. The robotic voice was back again. This made Khan doubt if System was a living being as well. But he didn't dwell on the matter and walked towards the close-by tree and broke its dried branches. He found a thin but sturdy branch that he could use to rub on other thick ones. This was basically Bear Grylls from Man vs. Wild. After failing for an hour and barely managing to generate enough heat on the wood to create smoke, and then using dry leaves to fan it out to create fire, finally Khan managed to create his campfire. It was already evening and the night was beginning. He judged that it would be around 6 p.m. based on the position of the sun. Thankfully, he had a way to keep himself warm and protected for the night. In half an hour, Omega finally returned with 4 rabbit-like things in its mouth. These things looked more like a combination between rabbits and mongoose with red and green stripes on their bodies. This was the first unfamiliar creature Khan saw in Vantria. Khan could see that these little things had a lot of meat on them, so he found that sufficient for the night. He then activated his wolf claws and dissected these little creatures. He had to dirty his hands if he wanted to eat. After cutting out the flesh and throwing away the entrails, he walked towards a nearby stream to wash it clean while Omega was on guard duty and keeping an eye around. After they got back, Khan poked in some thin branches inside the meat parts and grilled them on the campfire. Smelling the scent of freshly grilled meat, even Omega started salivating and started using puppy eyes towards Khan. Khan was stunned. This thing was a damn wolf, an apex predator, but now it was acting like a cute little doggy as soon as there was grilled meat in front of it. Wasn't this supposed to be some magical creature he created? Did it really need to eat? Khan sighed and continued grilling. When he was finally done, he took the meat of 2 rabbit-like animals and gave the rest left from the remaining 2 to Omega. They both needed the food to have enough strength for tomorrow. After filling his stomach till he was completely full, Khan went back to the stream and drank the water from the current. He could only hope that the meat he ate was edible and won't cause him food poisoning instead. Soon, he returned to their campsite and rested his back against the tree. He finally felt the tiredness wash over his body and felt like falling asleep soon. Omega was resting near him and had its ears perked up, ready to react if something approached them during the night. Khan gazed towards the night sky, looking at the clear and bright stars. This was his first day in Vantria. He already had a near-death experience, made an ally, and now, enjoying the pristine view of the night sky he barely saw in his previous life. The whole forest under the moonlight looked very serene and enchanting. Resting his eyes, Khan said to himself, "Let's see what tomorrow has in the store for me." In a dense forest full of tall and broad trees, a group of animals that could be called a mixture between deer and a predatory beast were eating grass peacefully. But unbeknownst to these creatures, there were 2 sets of eyes looking toward them from a distance. One of them was a giant wolf with full pitch-black fur on its entire body, while another was a man wearing a crimson-red wolf hide around his waist. Both of their eyes looked as if they were here to kill everything that stood in front of them. Khan and Omega were using their hunt perception ability. While using it, Khan's pupils dilated and he gained a more detailed and zoomed view of his targets. He could also see the heat signatures of his prey from 20 meters far and even feel which one of the creatures had all their muscles completely relaxed. You take the left, and I'll draw their attention. Attack as soon as I appear in front of them, and take down the one closest to the tree. Understood. Khan looked towards Omega. Omega nodded and left without causing any unnecessary noises which could alert their targets. Khan slouched and silently progressed towards the herd through tall grass on both of his hands and legs like a 4-legged animal would. He wasn't hasty nor clumsy, rather looked like he was in his natural habitat, similar to a tiger waiting for a perfect time to attack. Boom! Khan quickly activated his war dominance aura as soon he reached close to the herd. Strong gravitational pressure exerted around a 5-meter radius, and before these creatures could react, Khan pounced towards the nearest creature while activating his alpha wolf's claws and swung his right claw around the nape of the animal, which was caught off guard and couldn't even move under the leaden pressure of war dominance. In a matter of seconds, bluish blood was sprayed on the ground as soon as his claws pierced through the hide, which felt as tough as leather. This sudden attack alerted the other members of the herd, and they tried to run away the very next second. Khan had limited reach on the area he could cover under war dominance aura, so some of them had full control of their bodies and started running off, only to be attacked by a giant dire wolf from the opposite side. Unlike Khan, Omega was very vicious. He didn't go for a swift kill, rather plunged his teeth inside their necks and ripped apart the head out of their bodies. Blue blood spurted like a fountain on the green grass, but the massacre didn't stop. Both Khan and Omega dashed towards their respective closer targets and attacked in a pre-planned manner. It was as if they had completely practiced their coordination. The butchering continued until there were 5 dead bodies on the ground. Out of the 9 of these creatures, 4 managed to escape, while 5 went to heaven to meet their maker. Phew, I guess we got lucky, Khan said and put his right hand on one of the dead creatures. Absorb. Host has acquired the following abilities. Sprinter, Panorama Vision, Wilker Hide. Oh, so these are called Wilker? Khan learned the name of the species through the system. He imagined himself having the same tough skin as the Wilkers, and his skin completely turned green similar to these creatures, and small spikes appeared all over his body. Ugh, I look like Killer Croc now. Khan deactivated the ability and collected the core. Meanwhile, Omega was tearing out the flesh and entrails of the other bodies with his large fangs, as if he had been hungry for years. He only left out the cores for Khan and nothing else. Khan had already recovered, and now he was 4 times stronger than when he entered Vantria through the void. His war deity body had also completed its first transformation and became twice stronger compared to before. And Khan also ate the cores of small animals Omega hunted in the morning. And according to the system, he was now level 2, and his body attributes and stats increased by a few points as well. Still, this was no excuse to be laid back and hope things will go in his favor. He still remembered vividly how he barely managed to kill the wolves yesterday and survive by a hair's breadth. Otherwise, it'd be him who was torn through and gutted down by the pack of wolves. So he didn't wish to waste any time. Somehow, Omega had a proper understanding of which prey they could hunt with their capabilities and which ones they shouldn't. It was more like an innate sense of his direwolf species. Thanks to that, Khan didn't dare to attack various types of animals and predators in the jungle out of his foolishness. If even Omega, who was now level 15, didn't dare take a step closer to these creatures, it'd be stupid of Khan to target these monsters. Khan gulped down 2 of these cores after washing off the blue blood on them. He was already accustomed to it now, and the gory scene in front of him didn't bother him at all. He kept the other 2 just in case he needed them later to either eat or use for some other purpose. Ding! Congratulations to the host for reaching level 3. Khan didn't check his stats and looked at Omega. Let's go. It's about time we hunt that damn snake, Khan said with fervor, his eyes looking like they were after seeking revenge against someone. Omega, who had his fill of meat and innards, nodded and arched down in front of Khan. Khan sat on its back, and they headed towards the north where there was a broad valley full of boulders and water streams. After reaching midway, they both stopped and looked toward a big nest made out of tree logs and branches. Inside this nest, which was the same size as a tennis field, a giant white snake-like creature was sleeping soundly and basking in the rays of the sun. In between its wound-up body were 3 giant eggs with a golden color shells. In the morning, when Khan and Omega started their hunting spree, they made the rookie mistake of not gauging their target's strength, as he couldn't feel any strong aura from this creature. There was no strategy either. All they did was just waltz in and attack their target. But unlike the Wilkers they hunted just now, this thing was a true predator. Before Khan and Omega even appeared in a 15-meter radius, it sensed and attacked them instead. To make matters worse, it had greenish acid spraying out of its mouth, which melted a tree log as soon as it got hit. Khan and Omega had no other choice but to run off for their lives like chickens running away from a butcher. This creature had small horns protruding from its skull to the nape region, fangs and teeth of a snake with blue eyes and a black tongue. Its body had extremely white scales which looked fortified in some regions like a saw. This time, Khan had a proper strategy. It was not like killing this creature was a must, but he wanted that acidic venom ability, which was very lethal since he could use it to kill his enemies and even melt some things like stone slabs or even a boulder if he needed to. Khan wanted this type of skill because he didn't think there'd be many creatures like this one in the forest. This wasn't just some random nobody either. This snake-like creature looked like the boss of this area, given how it was wide in the open, and there was not a single animal or another monster that appeared in the nearby 2 kilometers radius of this area. Even Omega wasn't strong enough to kill it. The reason why he didn't sense any threat the first time was that this creature could somehow mask its presence and appeared only big. But after looking at the giant eggs, Khan understood that this was a female protecting her eggs, and that why it didn't exude a noticeable aura or killing intent. There didn't appear to be any signs of another one like this, so he had both advantages in numbers and ways to distract the creature. Khan and Omega looked towards a 5-meter-tall big boulder, which was sized the same as a house, and walked towards it. Luckily, this boulder was situated on a slope just in the direction of the nest. If they decided to push it from the edge, it would definitely roll down and hit the nest. Both Khan and Omega pushed the boulder with all their strengths after activating some of their brute abilities and finally pushed and rooted out the boulder. They made sure not to cause loud, grunting noises, which could alert the creature again. Once they were finally done, both took a small rest while Khan planned his next move. If this was Earth, current Khan and his physical strength would make him as strong as Colossus from X-Men, who had a complete steel body. So moving this gigantic boulder with the help of Omega, who was already strong enough to destroy a giant truck in a head-on clash, was doable for them. Just like we did it last time, but we need to be accurate in our timing. I'll divert its attention and you push down the boulder. Just make sure you don't do it before it comes close to me, or our plan fails and it later hunts us both till our deaths. Understood. Khan asked Omega. Omega nodded its head in compliance. Khan activated his newly gained sprinter ability and ran very fast with long leaps and strides from time to time. He quickly reached the entrance of the valley again. Khan stood there like he was going out to a war facing thousands of people by himself, with his broad shoulders and muscular body standing tall. As soon as he entered the sensitive area of the snake-like creatures, the creature opened its eyes again and looked in Khan's direction. Hiss! The creature hissed at Khan, trying to scare him and telling him to stay away. But Khan didn't budge a bit. Instead, he activated his Alpha Wolf's Howl ability and howled like a true wolf in the direction of the creature. The intensity and amplitude of this howl were so high that it caused ripples in the water stream that was flowing nearby. The next second, Khan activated his war dominance aura and stared straight into the eyes of the creature. This was a declaration of war. Hiss! The creature was angered to its core and finally lifted its complete body out of the nest. A whopping 10 meters tall, snake-like monster with giant fangs stared at Khan, with a look full of rage. It slithered in Khan's direction to attack him. For some reason, monster species were tremendously massive in the world of Vantra. The reason was still a mystery to Khan. Omega, be ready, or we both die today, buddy. Khan spoke in a loud voice. He didn't expect the creature to be this big based on his previous assumptions. The creature kept slithering towards Khan with a look of contempt and mockery, as if an elephant was looking at an ant. It didn't attack Khan hastily, but rather examined him before making the final decisive attack. Khan then activated his sprinter ability again and ran in the opposite direction, which made the giant snake follow him as every big predator liked playing with their food. Only after running 500 meters away from his previous location did Khan stop. As soon as the serpent reached 10 meters of his proximity, he shouted. Now, on the other side at the top of the slope, Omega finally received the command. He was already ready. He quickly ran and slammed his body on the giant boulder to give the final push. Rumble! Rumble! Just as the boulder started rolling and gaining momentum due to the slope, the giant snake finally moved its head toward the direction of the noise and saw where the boulder was headed to. The eggs. It slithered its way across the small boulders and the water stream in hurry and paced towards the nest, but it was very far because Khan had already led it at a distance far away. Hit them from where they can't see it. Khan grinned. It was all part of his plan. Naturally, he and Omega wouldn't be able to do jack shit against a creature this strong. So he had no other choice but to use this method. Khan quickly adapted from their previous encounter, understood the surroundings, and used the environment to his advantage. The creature paced towards the nest with all its might and finally managed to reach it. But what awaited, it was a giant boulder with so much weight and speed that there simply wasn't enough time for the creature to engulf or wound up and take the eggs away. With no other choice, it had the only option to face the giant boulder with its body. It came in between the nest border, which was made up of tree logs, and put its entire body to stop the boulder or the eggs would be smashed to the bits. It sprayed all its acid from its mouth at the incoming boulder, hoping that it'd melt just in time. Bang! A loud sound of two hard things banging against each other resounded in the area. Sadly, the creature overestimated its abilities and got smashed in the head with the giant boulder before it even started melting. Half of its body was squashed under the gigantic boulder as well. There was a defensive armor-like shell that appeared on its head at the last moment, clearly its life-saving ability. But even that wasn't able to protect the serpent, and its body lay just close to the nest, bearing all the brunt of the boulder and protecting its children at the expense of its life. Khan looked at the eggs. He clearly understood what his actions meant. He chose to use the maternal instinct of this giant serpent to protect its eggs and to force it to face off that incoming boulder. It was the only way he could kill it. Otherwise, he naturally wouldn't dare to do it until he was at least 20 times stronger than his current strength. And he wouldn't use Omega to fight it out till its last breath either, just to gauge the serpent's strength. Khan was sure that given the appearance and aura this creature in front of him exuded, it was definitely many times stronger than both of them. The old him as Elric in his previous life would never do something like this no matter what, but in this world in his second life, he had to do whatever he can to survive and become stronger. Just by how his strength grew after he killed monsters and ate their cores, there was a long journey of bloodbath ahead for Khan. So he had to put aside his feelings and heart and do what must be done. It was kill or be killed. Khan took a deep breath and came closer to the dead body. Only now did he notice that the creature was around 25 meters long and the body width was that of a width of a small car. This wasn't your average day-to-day monster, but rather a rare species. Khan placed both his hands on the ginormous body of the serpent. System, tell me about this creature. Khan commanded his inner system. Scanning completed. Information unlocked. Species, Somir. Description, a descendant species of one of the 5 ancient god beasts, the basilisk. Level, 20. Abilities, venom acid, acute sense, paralysis gaze, poison immunity, Grandmaster /S rank. Note, host is advised to absorb the abilities with the bloodline of this monster and must eat the core. To this information, Khan only stood still like a stone statue. Only after a dozen seconds he broke out of his shock and shouted with a baffled countenance. Holy fuck! The Crimson Red Wolf felt like Khan was no longer the meek prey, but something that was going to hunt them instead. But it tried to defy this pressure and forced itself to walk towards Khan again. It was just 5 meters away from its prey now. Khan on the other end was stunned. Damn it! It's not enough, he yelled in his mind. What about the combat techniques? I can't find a way to activate them either. Where the fuck is my game system, dude? Khan cursed in his head. The war dominance aura he was excluding wasn't strong enough to completely suppress the enemy in front of him. He also had the knowledge of all combat techniques given by Cravel, but he simply didn't know how to use or activate them at the present moment. Don't tell me that they'll activate when I try to fight with this wolf for real, like how real warriors fought in battle. And there's no command or way to perform these combat techniques. Khan thought, if this was the only way, then he had no other choice but to seek out his enemy in a frontal clash. Berserk God Mode, Khan shouted and dashed towards the Crimson Wolf, which was trying to attack Khan, unlike the other 2 wolves who couldn't tolerate the pressure of his aura and slumped down on the ground. Khan ran towards the Alpha Wolf and quickly covered the distance between them. The Crimson Wolf bore his sharp claws and swung his left claw towards the enemy's chest. At this moment, however, Khan felt like something happened to his own body. The moment he thought about going in Berserk God mode, he felt like his muscles suddenly gained 5 times the strength. His feet felt like they could move much faster, and, as the claw of the Alpha Wolf was coming towards him, he gained a form of perception, and his reflexes were twice faster than before. Khan instantly slid below the upcoming claw and quickly gave an uppercut towards the Red Wolf's mouth. Bam! The Crimson Red Wolf got struck in the jaw and lost its balance. It was already fighting against the pressure from Khan's war dominance aura, and as he was struck hard in its mouth, the Alpha Wolf momentarily lost all footing, just enough to make it fall on the ground. Thump! The wolf fell, and Khan on the other hand felt like his fist nearly broke. Even in Berserk God mode, which would make him 5 times stronger for a short amount of time, this barely met the mark to just land a solid hit on the Crimson Wolf. This meant that he was very weak against these monsters to begin with. Khan quickly hit the fallen wolf on its head and groped its neck in a chokehold. His muscles and veins were popping out of his body, and he felt like he was on a huge adrenaline spike, but his brain also told him that this was just temporary, so he had to be decisive and not waste a single second. Khan mustered all his strength and used all his force on trying to snap the struggling wolf's neck. The wolf wriggled around with Khan on its body and tried to bite him with its large and long fangs, struggling to get out of Khan's arms. Ah! Khan shouted and used all his strength to break the wolf's neck. Crack! The wolf whimpered for the last time before its body slumped down on the ground, dead on the spot. Crimson Wolf author, killed by my own MC in my first ever cameo, cries in a corner. Ding! Suddenly, a ding notification sound appeared in Khan's head. Khan, on the other hand, didn't pay any attention to it and quickly ran towards the wolf that was covering his left escape route. He came close to the already slumping wolf and joined both of his hands in a joint fist and quickly slammed it on the wolf's head with all his might. A cracking sound was heard from the wolf's head, and blood started gushing out of its ears and mouth. Khan was already on his last arrow and knew he didn't have any more time. He gathered his remaining strength and ran towards the last remaining wolf who covered his right exit route. Khan could feel his strength running out already, but he kept running and came close to the wolf, which finally somehow started resisting Khan's war dominance aura. No, you don't. Khan yelled and jumped with all his strength in his legs and performed a downside kick like how they showed in martial arts movies. Bang! The kick landed right between the wolf's skull and broke in half. Blood splattered on the ground, and Khan, who didn't time his landing and footing properly, also lost his balance and fell. I did it, Khan shouted as his body slumped on the ground, and he lost all the strength in his body. Only now did he realize how much toll did the Berserk God mode took on his body. Currently, he didn't even have enough strength to lift his head or change the side of his body. He was laying down in the grass and soil. He could feel the sand on his face and back as small pebbles were hurting his body. Barely made it. Khan came to realize how big of a close call this was. Any second later, and he'd be ripped to shreds by that last wolf whose corpse was lying just a meter close to him. For the love of God, this hurts. Khan could feel his entire body suffering immense pain, mainly his fists and his right leg that he used to kill the last wolf. Ding! Congratulations to the host for unlocking the following abilities for the first time. War Dominance, Combat Techniques, Berserk God Mode, War Deity Body. The host has learned Chokehold, Vertical Stomp, and Joint Fist combat techniques. Current mastery for these three the combat techniques, 30% on Master Rank. War Deity Body will undergo an upgrade after the host is no longer in a weakened state. Khan was flustered and gobsmacked after hearing this sudden voice in his mind. Wait a minute. He spoke with his mind jumbled and heart palpitating. I have a system. Gobsmacked. Khan's jaw hit the ground as soon as he heard the information. This wasn't just some higher version of a species. It was a descendant of an ancient god beast. Although Khan had no idea of what these god beasts were, but given the fact that the word God was in the name, it was enough to give him a clear idea of how strong that mythical creature might be. Even for a very low-leveled and weak descendant, the Somir in front of him was already a very strong creature. If not for Khan using a despicable and underhanded method like using the kids to kill the mother, he possibly couldn't have done it unless he had reached the same level as the one lying on the ground. Absorb. Khan spoke, and the ability Absorption Divine Ability started working, but unlike the previous times, it took around 40 minutes to finally absorb the new abilities. And at the end of it, there was still 80% of the flesh and blood from the original body was left as it is. The system probably absorbed only that was enough and left the rest. Ding! The host has acquired the following abilities. Venom Acid, Paralysis Gaze, Poison Immunity, Grandmaster Rank, Acute Sense, Somir Scales, Basilisk Bloodline Absorbed, 30% Purity. Note, Acute Sense merged under Survival Instinct Blessing. The accuracy of Survival Instinct ability increased by 40% and the range increased to 15 meters. Synthesis Divine Ability activated. Host can merge Predator's eyes and Paralysis Gaze to create a new skill. Would host like to perform the synthesis? Synthesize. Khan said without a hitch. Synthesis complete. The host can now divert his killing intent toward a single target, and the entity will be paralyzed on the spot, unable to move its body for the next 20 seconds. Note, works only on target weaker than the host in terms of levels and ranks. The host must name this first merged skill. Khan thought for a moment about the most fitting name. With this newly created skill, he could simply make anyone attacking him stop midway through their attack, paralyze them on the spot, and simply walk towards them and end their lives under those 20 seconds. This was him simply stunning his enemies. Executioner's Gaze. Congratulations to the host for creating the first skill. The efficiency of Executioner's Gaze increased by 50%, and time has been extended to 30 seconds. Bloody hell! Khan shouted and started laughing like the Joker. This new skill was just too OP for a beginner like him. Imagine if he could upgrade this ability in the future and use it on multiple targets at the same time. He'd be able to face any ambush with ease. Even with just a single target, this could save his life if he were to fight someone who's attacking from a long distance like an archer or attacked him from stealth like an assassin. Khan would be able to sense the attacker with his survival instinct and then use Executioner's Gaze to root them on the spot. This skill will definitely be one of his trump cards. After finally stopping his maniacal laughs, Khan activated and tried out Somir's Scale's ability. Quickly, black hexagonal skin as hard as an iron shield appeared across his body. And the best part was that it was very lightweight and didn't hinder Khan's physical movements at all. This was by far his best defensive skill because even Wilker Hyde's skill put a lot of restrictions on his body parts with all the spikes and bulged out regions, which would become a problem if he was wearing any clothes and had to use this ability to protect himself. If he was forced to use it among a crowd, he'd be labeled as a monster or a mixed race. Khan wondered a bit and asked the system, "Hey system, this wasn't listed in the abilities of the Somir when you scanned it. So how did I get it?" Ability Absorption Divine Ability can extract all forms of physical and magical abilities, bloodlines of rare species, and skills from any targeted being. Somir's Scales are its unique and exclusive physical ability. Extremely rare even amongst other descendant species of God Beast Basilisk. The scales can't be broken through even with Alpha Wolf's Claw's ability the host already has. This gave Khan another revelation. If they had not used the gigantic boulder's speed and weight while forcing the Somir to instantly use its body to protect the eggs, they possibly would never have managed to kill it if it has used this ability prior to that last moment. Forget killing it. Both Khan and Omega's most offensive abilities and skills wouldn't have even left a scratch on the scales. Is the goddess of luck in love with me? Khan asked himself. First, it was the pack of wolves he luckily managed to kill just in time before his Berserk God mode ended, and now this terrifying creature, which he couldn't have managed to kill even with all his attacking abilities without dying at least 100 times before he could even make it bleed. Oh my god, is this the legendary plot armor? Khan asked himself, full of awe and disbelief. Because given how things were going in his favor, whether it was keeping his life in the last moment or gaining abilities suitable and to his advantage given his current situation, there was definitely someone akin to a god helping him from behind the shadows. Author, Tip's imaginary hat Yar Yar days. Phew, this was too close. He spoke to himself and then examined his body again. The scales covered many vital organs on Khan's body, such as his heart, abdomen, neck region, and private parts. His shoulders and arms looked like Batman's batsuit from the Dark Knight, only with hexagonal patterns in his case. His entire body had become a walking and breathing armor. Apart from his face, he could cover his entire body in these ink-black yet shiny and lustrous scales, which even reflected the sun rays to some degree. Khan finally got a hold of his emotions and tore through the abdomen region of Somir, which wasn't covered by these scales, and took the core out of the Somir's heart. But unlike all his previous encounters with the monster, this core wasn't red, but violet in color, while radiating a faint glow as well. System, what rank would the Somir be compared to all the monster species in your knowledge? Khan asked. He wanted to grasp exactly what level of monster did they luckily killed. According to System's database, the Somir would be ranked at legendary level, just below the mythical and god beast level. At this point, Khan grew numb and forgot to even breathe. What the fuck? Legendary level? Did I just pick a fight with a legendary monster and even manage to kill it without dying? Khan sat on the ground, completely out of his wits. What kind of plot hole is this? he yelled in bewilderment. For what it's worth, the Somir in front of the host is only 50 years old and very low level. A fully matured Somir would be at least level 200 and around 500 years old. The host has lucked out, the system replied, trying to console Khan. Yes, extreme luck. Otherwise, even that boulder wouldn't have managed to kill it. Rather, the boulder would have cracked instead if it was a matured Somir. Khan finally came to terms with his luck. Hey system, will there be any side effects if I eat it in one go? This core looks extremely high grade and powerful. I won't explode right after eating it, right? Khan asked. He wasn't stupid to eat out something that looked so powerful and full of magical energy. No. Ability absorption divine ability will control the flow of the mana absorbed and distribute it inside the host without causing any side effects to the host's physical body. The system informed Khan. Truly a cheat code. Khan sighed, then cleaned and ate Somir's violet core. A sudden surge of energy emanated from the core as soon as it reached Khan's stomach. Khan quickly signaled Omega to be on guard and sat on the bare ground with his legs crossed, in a Buddha lotus position, just like those cultivation manhuas and novels, as he understood how crucial this moment was. His entire body felt like it was breaking through its limits every second, and Khan went into a meditating state, focusing on the flow of mana inside his body while trying to comprehend how mana itself functioned in this world. From what God of Darkness told Khan back then, the magical and world energy in Vantria was so abundant that creatures here absorbed it inside their cores and souls, which eventually allowed their bodies to adapt to it and become fortified with time. And otherworlders like Khan who were summoned here had souls far stronger than the creatures living here, so their souls could absorb both magical and world energy in this world far many times faster and process it in a short time. During his meditative state, Khan felt that something inside him was becoming larger and denser as the core was being absorbed at a fast pace. Ding, ding, ding. The notification sound in his head kept ringing more than 24 times, and the aura Khan was radiating was becoming denser, and the area covered under was expanding gradually. Khan was leveling up at an unimaginable rate. After 2 hours of being in this state, Khan finally opened his eyes. With mental clarity so many times higher than before, the reach of his eyesight became so sharp that he could even see every single hair on his arm, and even count them without losing track. Khan's entire thought process became 3 times faster than before, and his demeanor changed from a warrior-like man to a warlord who controlled everything around him. This wasn't just physical or mental change, rather a complete transformation for Khan. As if he was born anew and lived through decades of life-fighting battles and reigning as a king. Khan was no longer an uninformed man. He understood one thing after his body and mind underwent this massive change. He had somehow managed to inherit the will of the Somir. System, give me all the details on my attributes and skills. A detailed report. Khan ordered. Even the way he interacted with the system had changed. Earlier, whenever he asked any questions or commanded the system, it was more like him relying on some external being who he needed. But now, the way he commanded the system was more like a tyrant giving an order to one of his subjects. Host attributes and skills are as follows. Name, Khan host. Species, human. Rank, master. Level, 30. Strength, 60. Agility, 60. Dexterity, 90. Defense, 50. Mana, 150. Divine abilities. Ability absorption, dimensional law, synthesis. Blessings. War dominance, stage 1. Weapon mastery, master rank. Combat mastery, master rank. Survival intent, stage 1. Berserk god mode, 5 times the physical strength. War deity body, stage 2. Gifts. All languages knowledge known to the war deity. Abilities and skills. Alpha Wolf's Claws. Alpha Wolf's Howl. Long Stride. Sprinter. Hunt Perception. Predator's Eyes. Panorama Vision. Wilkerhide. Acute Sense. Poison Acid. Poison Immunity. Grandmaster Rank. Somir Scale Body. Executioner's Gaze. Reported the system, presenting a full catalog. Finally, After going through everything he possessed till this point, Khan stopped thinking about his current state and calmed his mind. Without wasting any more time, he jumped inside the nest and came closer to the golden-shelled eggs that the mother Somir died protecting. Khan had no regrets for what he did until now, but after inheriting the Somir's will, he felt an innate form of connection towards these eggs, as if they were his own kin, like they were his own children. He touched 2 of the 3 eggs with his hands and commanded the system again. Check their situation. Can they survive? Khan spoke. Scanning complete. Both eggs are in midway through maturity. However, they have already formed the traces of their bloodline and their cores. At this moment, the system voice stopped as if hesitating to reveal more. But then after a long pause, it continued again. But without Mother Somir managing heat temperature to help their maturity, the embryos will die in 2 days. Only the heat received from the Mother Somir can ensure their survival. As soon as the system told him this, he put his hand on the 3rd egg only to receive the same response from the system. Khan clenched his fists and a look of regret was on his face. Previously, he felt no regret or any emotional burden when he killed a pack of Wilkers. But now, he was suddenly having a surge of overwhelming guilt and shame for what he did. He knew it was the will of Mother Somir making him think this way, because Khan's action in pursuit of strength and survival led to this moment. So what if this was a kill or be killed world? Did he really have to attack the Somir in the first place? He could have gone somewhere else and left the Somir who was only guarding its eggs alone. And these rare eggs would one day breed life of their own. At the end of the day, these were sentient beings just same as Khan was. He didn't just kill their mother, he also gave these little ones a death sentence. There were 2 conflicting sides in his head. One was justifying his actions rationally, while the other one was berating him for being emotionally heartless. Tears trickled down Khan's eyes as he looked towards the eggs and then the dead body of the Somir lying outside the nest. Unlike his own family who were never there for him, this legendary creature, which was a mother itself, gave its life for the children without even flinching twice. This motherly love was something Khan never felt in his previous life. "I'm sorry," Khan said and wiped off the tears. The Somir was indeed a legendary creature to have its core form a will and impact Khan's mind to this degree. So naturally, this was making Khan feel guilty for his actions. He understood this as well, but couldn't find a way to justify his doing either. "System, tell me, is there a way I can save these eggs?" Khan asked with a concerned gaze. "With our current situation and abilities at the host's disposal, it's impossible." "Damn it," Khan cursed, feeling even more regret than before. System detects that the host's mind is being influenced by the will of the deceased Somir. Taking precautionary measures. Would host like to terminate this external consciousness? System asked. There was indeed a way for Khan to not feel guilty any longer, and he'd be back to being himself before he absorbed the core. "Wait," Khan said. He did not want to run away from his doing. "Can I merge them and create a subordinate?" Khan asked the system. "Yes. Since the embryos haven't formed a full consciousness, they can be considered lifeless beings. But host will need a dead body to merge them with. Or the resultant subordinate will not possess any physical abilities of this species, since the embryos haven't developed any of them at this stage. With multiple cores and bloodlines that are yet to be awakened, the embryos will not yield a proper form of their species either. The system gave all the possible outcomes to Khan should he choose to use them for creating a new subordinate. Khan understood what this would mean. A being that won't be useful to him or won't even have a proper consciousness even after going through his synthesis divine ability. He had no options available. But then he suddenly saw the dead body of the Mother Somir and had an idea. System. Completely terminate the external consciousness. Khan commanded the system. The next second, Khan felt all the guilt he felt vanish, as if nothing happened at all. His innate connection to the eggs was severed as well. And now he was back to his clear and focused mind he gained after he absorbed the core of Mother Somir. But this didn't mean that he had forgotten what he felt just a few seconds ago. Khan wrapped his arms around one egg and lifted it, taking it closer to the dead body of Mother Somir. He repeated the same action for the remaining eggs and came close to the head of the Somir. He gently patted on the lifeless head of the Somir and said with eyes full of regret and determination at the same time. Khan gave a compassionate look contrary to his previous lifeless one. "I'm sorry. This is the only I can make sure that your children didn't die in vain. And whatever comes out of this procedure, I promise you that I'll make it so strong one day that even the ancient god beasts like the basilisk will not be able to stand on even grounds with it. That will be my penance." He spoke with a resolute voice. "For condemning your children to the fate of death." Khan came back to the eggs and made a physical touch with his hands and used the legs to touch the last egg and the corpse of Mother Somir. All he had to do was form physical contact with all four of these in any way he could. Merge! Khan activated his synthesis divine ability and began the process of merging the eggs and the corpse. Unlike the previous times, something different happened during this creation of a subordinate. Ding! Host has acquired an additional 20% basilisk bloodline purity through the 3 eggs. Since all the cores and the bodies belong to the same species, the resultant subordinate will inherit all the physical traits with the evolution skill unlocked. Since the host is in the possession of 50% pure bloodline of the basilisk, the host can choose to impart this bloodline to the subordinate being created. System informed Khan, who is still not completely over the guilt. "Will I lose the chance to use the bloodline abilities of the basilisk in the future?" Khan asked. He had to know this first. No, the bloodline is already part of the host's body, so the host will not lose it. However, the host is currently not able to awaken the effects and abilities of this bloodline. The subordinate itself will be able to awaken these traits and skills with time. Host is advised to find more samples of this or any other bloodlines of god beasts to acquire their abilities and even transform himself into these god beasts in the future. Note: Host will need to absorb a mythical rank metamorphosis bloodline to aid this process. "Do it," Khan said as soon as System finished giving the possible outcomes. Unlike the time he created Omega, this synthesis process lasted for an entire hour. This showed how complex and critical this whole process was compared to his previous attempt. Beads of sweat were dropping down Khan's head. He noticed that out of 150 points of mana he had, only 5 points were left. This process indeed required a lot of mana as well. Still, he didn't regret it or budge a bit. Finally, all the 3 shadows that covered the 3 eggs and the biggest one, which covered the entire corpse of Mother Somir, merged. But this time, another surprising phenomenon occurred. A dark fog suddenly spread around 1 kilometer radius from where Khan carried out the synthesis, and an unimaginably chilling aura pressured the entire surrounding of the valley. Even the insects flying in the air fell. This was an aura of dread, anger, and supremacy, only exuded by powerful kings, emperors, or beings who were of higher forms and stood at the top of the food chain. This was the aura of an absolute ruler. The dark fog started coalescing together, and the giant shadow that was covering the body of Somir was forming the shape of a snake-like creature, much taller, bigger, and broader than the Mother Somir originally was. Omega, who was standing far away and was on guard duty when Khan was carrying out the synthesis procedure, even fell on the ground under this sheer pressure. By no means Omega was weaker, but the creature being created was already on a different league that both Khan and Omega could not compare to. Finally, after 10 minutes of adjusting its final form, the creature came to be. A giant black snake-like creature with 2 horns protruding from the backside of its skull came into sight. Its bright yellow eyes with black pupils, 2 giant fangs, and a maw full of thousands of sharp teeth were revealed when it opened its mouth. Its entire body, except the abdomen part, was covered in dark and sturdy scales, which looked like an upgraded version of Somir's scales. Even sturdier, darker, and edged with small spikes. When this creature rose with its full body, it was already 25 meters tall, and Khan could not even see how long its total length was. The creature gazed at Khan with dreadful eyes, as if trying to defy Khan's control over him. Khan activated his War Dominance aura the next second, trying to display his authority. Hiss! Screech! The gigantic snake bared his large fangs against Khan and screeched at him loudly. This was a war for dominance amongst those trying to establish their authority. Ding! The system voice sounded in his mind, and the information about the creature appeared. Synthesis successful. A new subordinate has been created. Evolution skill unlocked. Species: Voronir, variant basilisk. Rank: mythical rank. Khan could feel the pressure, which was twice stronger than the mother Somir. He felt the killing intent from the eyes of this new subordinate. Eyes full of wrath. Try to defy those who stand against you. I have a fitting name for you. From this day forth, your name shall be Rudra. After Khan named the gigantic basilisk variant Rudra, the creature finally stopped baring its fangs against Khan, but did not budge from its place. Unlike Omega, who sat and bowed in submission to Khan after being created, Rudra didn't show any signs of acknowledging Khan at all. Rather, he looked very dismissive of his owner. System: why is he showing such an attitude? Khan asked the system in a calm tone. Rudra didn't make him feel threatened at all, because he knew it wouldn't attack him because of the restrictions put on it by the divine ability, which made him unable to attack or harm the owner in any way. What bothered Khan was, even after giving a name, the gigantic snake didn't show any form of compliance with him at all. It's because the subordinate is a being of a very high species, bloodline, and rank compared to the host. Since it inherits the traits of its species and the bloodline of a god beast, the host is nothing but a weak and lowly creature in its eyes. If not for the restrictions placed by the synthesis divine ability, it would have killed the host the moment it came into existence. System replied. Weak and lowly creature, huh? Tell me, System, if I were to fight Rudra in a head-on battle, what are my chances of winning? Khan asked out of curiosity to understand his new subordinate's strength. 0. What? That's strong? You're not over-exaggerating, right? Khan found it hard to believe. No. Host barely has a 20% chance of escaping from Rudra if both are to clash in a fight to the death. The system responded in a solemn voice. Then what should I do? Because he at least has to listen to me, or there won't be any use in creating him at all. Khan asked in a puzzled tone. Simple. The host needs to become strong to an extent that not only the subordinate acknowledges, but also fears the host. System didn't mingle any words and gave straight-up facts. Damn it. Show me his stats. Statistics for the subordinate Rudra are as follows. Name: Rudra. Species: Voronir, variant basilisk. Evolution skill unlocked. Level can be upgraded through eating other monsters. And rank can be upgraded with higher and purer bloodlines of other god beasts or their descendant species. Rank: mythical. Level: 42. Strength: 1,390. Agility: 1,350. Dexterity: 781. Defense: 1,293. Mana: 800. Abilities: Corrosion Acid, upgraded version of Somir's Venom Acid. Hypnosis Gaze. Impenetrable Scales. Shadow Merge. Dominator's Aura. Silence. Another moment of silence. Now Khan finally understood why Rudra hadn't acknowledged him as its master. Because compared to Rudra, Khan was nothing but an ant. Even though there was only 12 levels of difference between Khan and Rudra, the stats between them were like the distance between heaven and earth. There was not even a need for comparison. Every aspect of Rudra was at least 30 to 40 times higher than Khan. Even if he were to be on the same level as the snake in front of him, he still won't be able to cover the distance between their strength even by half. This creature was indeed on a whole level above the legendary rank. Khan felt worried that he wouldn't be able to control Rudra at his will at all, because only the strong acknowledge the strong. Weaklings are not even worth looking at in their opinion. And that's why Rudra had not acknowledged Khan. The gigantic snake could just swat its tail, and Khan would be turned into meat paste. That was their current situation. Because no matter what, an ant cannot control a full-grown dragon. A newborn baby cannot control an adult king, just because they hold the leash. If not for the restrictions made by the synthesis divine ability, Rudra could kill Khan with a sneeze. And that's why he had to look for a different approach. Khan deactivated his war dominance aura. giving up on trying to make Rudra submit to him. Rather, he looked at Rudra as an equal. Because even with the difference in strength, Rudra was still bound to him, and Khan needed him to gain more strength and kill stronger enemies. Their situation was of being codependent on each other. You understand what I'm saying, right? Khan asked Rudra. To this, Rudra only changed the way he looked at Khan, from hostility to understanding. Listen, I know I'm weak compared to you, and maybe won't gain the same strength as you anytime soon. However, you're also bound to me even if you don't like it. You'll have to follow wherever I go, and I'll need your aid to kill those who are stronger than me. So I have a proposition for both of us. Khan said as he gazed right into the eyes of the mythical basilisk variant without any hint of fear. Rudra slightly tilted his head as if he was saying, "Tell me more." "Look, I can gain strength by absorbing the abilities of others and eating their cores. In your case, you need to eat their bodies and cores to raise your strength as well. So how about we work as partners on equal footing than a master and servant relationship?" Khan proposed his idea. This was the only available option. Rudra screeched at Khan again with disapproving eyes. He just wanted to kill the human standing in front of him, but something kept stopping him from acting upon his will. He was a highly intelligent being, so he understood that there was no other option available. He had to work together with this human. "Good," Khan said as he understood Rudra accepting the deal through their connection. "System, I have a question. Why are both subordinates black? Even the Somir scales I used were black." Khan needed some clarification as this kept happening frequently. "Host is the chosen representative of God of Darkness. You have a very high affinity towards the darkness element in Vantria. Whether it's dark magic or any physical ability which involve having affinity to certain elements." "I see. Then what's this shadow merge ability?" "Both Omega and Rudra have it." Khan had noticed this same ability appear in both cases of the subordinates he created. This is an exclusive ability for all the subordinates created by the host, which allows them to merge with host's shadow and be with him no matter where the host goes. Host can use it to carry the subordinate with him to any place. There are no restrictions on time, space required, or size of the subordinate. Amazing. This helps a lot. I thought I'd always have to hide them somewhere far from people's eyes. Now I can just carry them with me. And I'll never be alone either. Khan let out a small chuckle. He looked at Rudra again and said, "Want to go and hunt some food and get stronger?" To this question, Rudra only maintained aloofness. "Io, it's like I'm asking a girl, where do you want to eat? I want an ally, not a teenager throwing tantrums." Khan shook his head helplessly. "Come, hide in my shadow. We can't let your giant body allure our prey. Stronger ones will have wider senses. It'll decrease our rate of hunts." Khan said, as this humongous body was indeed easy to detect and cause a commotion. Surprisingly, Rudra didn't hesitate and turned into a black shadow and merged with Khan's in just a second. Its building toppling body was nowhere to be seen. Khan, with newly acquired mental clarity and mindset, wasn't bewildered by this fact. He ordered Omega to come to him. Then he sat on Omega's back and headed towards other directions where they previously avoided going. What followed for the next 2 days was a grand massacre and a huge change in the ecosystem, as well as the food chain of the forest. Khan and Omega saw how fierce Rudra was in his combat state. Forget fighting back. Many of the strong monsters, like some hybrid species of tigers and lions, some odd-looking species which differed from anything Khan ever imagined, fell one by one in front of this mythical creature. Some even melted on the spot before they could even run or fight back against Rudra. Khan cried tears of regret, because sometimes this new subordinate would not even let him absorb the abilities and even melt the cores. He had to constantly remind Rudra to leave the bodies intact first. And Rudra's hypnosis gaze was even more frightening than his corrosion acid, because as soon as the prey fell in eye contact with Rudra for long, the monster would stop fighting and instead come to them like the trio were its lifelong best friends. And some even died with happy expressions on their faces. But thanks to Rudra, they managed to kill monsters who were even at level 65. Strength didn't matter to Rudra because he was in a different league altogether due to having humongous increase in stats because of his mythical rank and basilisk bloodline despite being low-leveled in them. And with Khan and Omega distracting the prey or goading it into attacking them and releasing Rudra out of Khan's shadow at crucial moments, they managed to catch their prey off guard and finish the fight in just a single sweep. The cores naturally went to Khan as he needed them the most. He would occasionally let Omega chomp on them as well, because currently the dire wolf was the weakest among the Trinity. Rudra only ate the bodies and left small ones for Omega. He found it beneath him to eat the cores of these weak monsters, which barely helped him raise his strength and levels. If not for Somer's core, Khan would be far weaker as well. But things turned out in his favor in the past 2 days. The stronger the enemy, the more beneficial the core for him. In just 2 days, Khan went from level 30 to level 35. Omega went from 15 to 25. But Rudra only raised 2 levels as he needed much stronger enemies and cores to increase his strength. And they had killed all the possible candidates. There was nothing left for them in this forest any longer. On the 3rd day, however, they heard a sound of infighting in the west of the forest. Khan and Omega followed the noise while Rudra hid in Khan's shadow. After finally reaching the source of the sound, Khan let out tears of joy. Finally, some humans. There was a grotesque battle happening in front of Cliff. Khan hid among the small trees and bushes and observed the scene in front of him. 2 groups in a battle to the death. One appeared to be normal merchants and their bodyguards, while the other being a group of bandits. And the merchant side at the losing side in this case. Only 2 merchants and 5 bodyguards versus more than 12 bandits surrounding them. Many of the merchants and bodyguards lying on the ground, their bodies lifeless. Khan, who was watching from 30 meters distance from within the plants and bushes, could clearly see what was exactly happening. These poor merchants were ambushed in a well-thought trap, because on bandit group side, there were only 3 casualties and 2 injured, while the merchant side having lost more than a dozen men despite having around the same number of people. Khan rejoiced in his head. He finally found a way to get out of the damn forest and also play the hero part so that the losing side will be indebted to him. Compared to how Rudra and Omega killed their enemies, the scene in front of him was like children playing house. And he too was accustomed to a lot of killing in the week he had spent in the forest. Plus, he had absorbed the abilities of many predators in the forest and acquired and merged many of their abilities. One being Hunter's Intent, he created after absorbing the abilities of a hawk-like bird and a scaly lion-like monster. And this new ability helped him gauge the strength of his enemies, like how Survival Instinct Blessing from Cravel let him feel the killing intent directed at him. And he found that none of the bandits that were attacking the merchants and the bodyguards were nearly half as strong as him. But he decided to wait up a bit more. He had to make his entry in the most crucial moment. Otherwise, his help would go underappreciated. Khan wasn't hasty to help because he knew that he too will be looked at suspiciously after he saved the poor merchants. Because a half-naked man, wearing wolf hide, coming out of a deep forest to help out poor travelers worked only in fictional stories. As soon as the trouble was gone, everyone would think like Red looks sus and would point their swords at him next. Among the bodyguards, there were 2 women and 3 men. One of the women having a metal wand in her hand who was conjuring spells and creating barriers to help her allies. The other woman being an archer who looked very skilled and fast at shooting her arrows every time an enemy tried to make a move. Out of 3 men, 2 were the tank and the swordsman, while 1 looked like the healer who was in the center of the battle formation. All these 5 had a deep understanding of each other, and their coordination was a sight to behold. This was a team that worked with each other for years. Classic RPG stuff. Khan thought. But no matter what, even a strong formation would fall in front of sheer numbers. The merchants were of no help in this case, and the bodyguards were simply getting too tired to fight as the time passed. Finally, the bandits broke through their formation and attacked the mage and healer of the group. These 2 had no fighting capabilities at a short distance. Even the archer was forced to use her daggers, as she lost the advantage of distance. The middle-aged man, who was the tank, and young swordsmen were barely holding 2 to 3 enemies at bay by themselves. At this rate, they were all going to die. One of the bandits shouted, Don't hurt the women. Both are quite exquisite. We can enjoy their bodies for a long time." The voice came from a burly and tall man who was wielding a giant cleaver, his wide and strong arms easily managing to hold the weight and swing it without any problem. The tank, who was already bearing the brunt of 3 bandits, fell back after this newcomer attacked him with a vertical swing of his cleaver. "Follow the boss's orders, and don't let them commit suicide. We can sell them later for a high price in the slaves market as well. They are quality goods," said one of the bandits who was standing in the middle of their group, and knocked an arrow, aiming towards the healer of the group. Lecherous gazes were focused on both the women in the groups, while the men were already dead in their eyes. From the bushes across the road, a figure silently walked behind these bandits without making any sound. The figure stood behind one of the archers in the group who was the farthest from the battle. Before he could even notice anything, a strong hand covered his mouth while the other one grabbed his neck from behind. Before the archer could even make a sound, an unbearable amount of force was exerted from the hand, and his neck was snapped right that very moment. The figure slowly put down the dead archer on the ground and looked towards another archer just 3 meters ahead. The figure walked behind this second archer and snapped his neck just like the earlier one. 2 down, 10 to go. The figure spoke softly. It was none other than Khan. He decided that it was about time he interfered and saved the merchants and their bodyguards who were close to cross that threshold of life to death. But he chose to do it the silent way, because waltzing in would jeopardize the lives of these people if the bandits were alerted and went all in with their attacks. Now, they were just laughing at the defending side and passing on slanders on the women about how they'll play with their naked bodies. These remarks disgusted Khan, yet he chose to use their diverted attention to his advantage. Khan quickly left the scene and focused on the next batch of targets, the healers amongst the bandit group. Khan crouched from the bushes and silently appearing both these 3 healers. He had to be decisive because after this, the bandits would be alerted. He grabbed the neck of one of the healers and snapped it the next second. Before the other healer standing close even noticed anything, Khan focused all his strength in his right fist and sent a devastating punch to other healers' heads. Bang! The healer's head exploded right on the spot. He didn't even get to react and wail in pain before his head turned into broken eggshells and red blood, and the brain splattered on the ground. "What?" The remaining healer shouted in surprise. This made other bandits look behind their backs. What they saw was 4 dead bodies on the ground, while one had his brains splattered like a watermelon. Khan did not stop and dashed towards the last healer in a single leap, his right knee focused towards the sternum of the healer. The force and momentum were so strong that as soon as Khan's knee touched the ribcage, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. "Ah!" The healer shouted as his body was flung backward by that forceful attack, dropping on the ground the next second. The man spat a big chunk of blood from his mouth and started choking on it. Khan didn't waste any time looking at it, and he ran towards the closest swordsman who was barely processing what just happened. The swordsman grabbed his sword tightly and ran to attack Khan. "You fucker! Die!" he shouted and swung his sword horizontally. To this, instead of running away or trying to dodge the attack, Khan increased his pace, and before the sword could even touch him, he was already in close proximity of this bandit. He quickly grabbed the wrist of this bandit, stopping the sword midway, and twisted it forcefully. Khan head-butted the swordsman and kicked him in his sacred temple with all the force in the leg. Crack! 2 walnuts were broken that day. The bandit who just lost his ability to reproduce wailed in agony and grabbed his crotch. Khan quickly picked up the fallen sword and held it like a long pole in his right hand, then closed his left eye as if trying to aim. The next second, he threw the sword with all his might at one of the bandits holding a scepter in his hand. The mage. Before the mage could even react, the sword pierced through his neck, even breaking the bones and exiting out from the other side. Up to now, everything happened within just 20 seconds as soon as Khan was noticed by the bandits. Naturally, they weren't going to stand there and wait for Khan to kill them. "Kill that motherfucker!" one of the bandits shouted, and several of the bandits charged at Khan, with eyes full of anger and hatred. They wanted to cut him into hundreds of pieces. The closest bandits attacked with his mace and aimed at Khan's head. Khan, who already had his hunter intent and survival instinct blessing active as soon as he entered in this fight, was already moving like a jaguar. Too agile and quick to react in just a second. He sidestepped before the swinging mace could even touch him and kneed the bandit in his ribcage. Bones cracked, and the bandit caved in, the broken bones piercing his heart. "Who the fuck are you?" The boss of the bandits finally shouted. His eyes were full of rage and killing intent. "Your death," Khan replied in a stern tone and picked up the mace. He walked towards the swordsman who was lying on the ground with his hands holding his crotch after that sudden attack. "No, don't come near me," the bandit shouted, color dropping away from his face as he saw the murderous eyes of the half-naked man in front of him. "Gotcha!" The sound of something hard broken could be heard in the area, and just like that, another bandit fell. Khan took out the mace from the mushed head, which was lying on the ground like a broken watermelon. "Who's next?" Khan asked as he gazed towards the remaining bandits. Out of the 12 bandits, only 5 remained as Khan systematically took out 7 of the bandits in a matter of seconds. This eased the tension on the bodyguards who were suppressed till now and finally could fight on even terms with the bandits. The tank and the swordsmen of their group already noticed Khan when he took down the archers as they were fighting in the front. But they kept silent as they were more focused on fending off the bandits they were dealing with. "You're going to pay for this. I'm going to torture you to death," the big and brawly bandit boss shouted. The boss looked like a giant bear, had a long brown beard, and his entire physique was that of a seasoned warrior. "Looks like you don't get it. It's not me who's going to pay. It's you who will pay for your sins," Khan said as he readies himself for a brute clash. "You took everything from me," said Khan loudly, enough to reach the bodyguards and who were fighting against the remaining bandits. "I don't even know who you are," replied the bandit boss as he charged at Khan. The giant cleaver swung around a couple of times, Khan dodging them by sliding and sidestepping. Both times it looked like he barely missed the attack and survived by hair's breadth. In response, Khan also swung the mace but was tackled and defended against. The bandit boss was a skilled fighter and had tons of experience. Till now, Khan only fought with his bare hands and didn't even use a single one of the abilities and skills he gained by absorbing monsters. This would raise suspicion, and he'd appear like a monster from the forest. Unlike the other bandits, the leader was well geared up and had a lot of his vital body parts covered in either iron or a leather armor. Khan could easily rip that apart with his alpha wolf's claws, but he had to play the part, so he wasn't going to do anything that would arouse unnecessary questions. Another powerful horizontal swing came. Khan squatted down and used a leg sweep to break the body balance of the bandit leader, who was already in motion. Clang! The bandit leader fell on the ground as his entire body was in full momentum. Khan quickly attacked the right hand that was holding the giant cleaver and broke the fingers on the hand with a single attack. Khan's mace landed on the chest of the fallen bandit boss, and he kept swinging it over and over again till it broke through the chest armor. Stop! No! The bandit boss yelled while getting hit with the mace on his torso again and again. His chest was bleeding, his face was already bruised, and blood was flowing from his nose. Somehow, Khan's hits were getting stronger and stronger, and his body could barely retaliate. Was this guy holding back till now? The bandit leader asked himself. Khan noticed that the remaining bandits were killed by the bodyguards with their impeccable coordination and timing. He turned his eyes back to the bandit leader and said, "Look, none of them are left. Shouldn't their leader also join them?" Khan said while acting as he was delivering a death sentence. "Let me go, please. I'll do whatever you want." The bandit boss begged. "Did you let my friends go? Did you let all those women and children go?" Khan shouted in an enraged voice, hearable to anyone within half a kilometer. His voice contained wrath and despair at the same time. "What did we ever do to you?" the bandit leader asked in a deathly gassed voice. "The farmers. The mercenaries," Khan said as he ripped apart the chest armor and clenched his fists. He sat on the upper body of the bandit leader and started punching the bandit's face with only enough force to let the sound reach everyone's ears. "Who the fuck are you even talking about?" the bandit boss said as he was barely able to stand these punches. "You don't even remember them? You bastard. Were they just nobodies you killed for fun? Your mistake was letting me escape that time. Surprised, the bandit leader asked, Are you one of those guys? Khan had no idea what this guy was talking about, but played along. Splat! The head was cut in two, and the blood and brains were out in the open. The bad guy played his part. There was no more need of him. Khan didn't stop here. He looked towards the sky, as if trying to remember something. Yah! Khan roared with all his might. His head held towards the open sky as he started sobbing on the place, his voice trembling with pain and sadness. Elena, Stephen, Pavel, Uncle Vasimir, I've avenged you. I've finally avenged you. Khan said as tears trickled down from his eyes. Khan got off from the dead bandit leader's body and fell on his knees as if a dam of hidden grief had finally broken down. He kept crying and wiping off tears from his face. The angle was good enough to get noticed by everyone from the merchants and the bodyguard side. This was a very touching scene for anyone who lost a family member or someone they loved. Finally, after staying silent for a while, an elderly man who was one of the merchants and a middle-aged man from the bodyguards walked in close to Khan. The elderly man spoke in a soft and gentle tone. Thank you, young man. You saved all of our lives today. If not for you, none of us would be alive at this moment. Yes, we would be dead men, and the women in our group would be left to a fate controlled by these bastards. And we would never be able to avenge our fallen comrades, either, said the middle-aged man who had a giant shield on his back. His build was no different than the bandit leader, but he looked more of a father figure type of person. He had gray hair strands in the middle of his head and a completely white beard. The elderly man was scrawny, but had an appearance of a well-off businessman just by looking at his clothes. Khan replied with a solemn voice, maintaining his previous demeanor. I didn't do it for you.